You're listening to the ESO Network, your station for all things geek.
Hello and welcome to the 42 Cast, your ultimate answer to fandom, geekiness, and everything. As always, I am your host Nathan, and we have another great episode lined up for you where we're going to talk about Season 2 of The Flash. But before we do that, I do think it's important to note that when we recorded this episode, it was summer of last year. It was before the news came out about the tweets that Hartley Sawyer had deleted from his Twitter account and the news of his firing. We did gush about him, but I feel that that's valid because, like I said, we didn't know about what was going to come out about him, but we were also talking about the performance, and we were talking about the character of the elongated man in the episode. We are in no way endorsing anything that was on the tweets that were the cause of his firing. There are many misogynistic and racist comments that we do not agree with, and I just wanted to make sure that we put that out there. We mentioned that this is from before that time when we were made aware of that, and like I say, anything that we say positively about Sawyer is about the performance, and it is about the character of the elongated man. So moving forward, he won't be part of the show. And although that's disappointing on one angle, because I do think that he had grown into the role and that he was a very interesting character, I understand the studio's decision. And that is the consequence of saying things that you shouldn't say online. And hopefully he has turned over a new leaf, like he said in his statements. But since there's no way for anyone to really know that, he's just going to have to demonstrate that by his actions for the rest of his life, basically. So, yeah. Anyway, I don't want to bring us down too much by dwelling on that too much, but I did want to make sure that we made that clear about the episode coming up. In news, here, we finished watching The Flight Attendant, which we greatly enjoyed. My understanding is that first season is the actual novel storyline, so a little worried whenever they come out with season 2 that now that they have to make up original content that it's not going to be as good. But since I've never read the book, I don't know if there's more stuff that they can draw from or how any of this works, so we'll just have to see when we get to it. We finished Star Trek Discovery. We're trying to get through Star Trek Lower Decks. Watched the first few episodes. I'm not really too keen on it myself, but I keep getting told it gets better as it goes on, so hopefully that'll be true. Looking forward to Godzilla vs. Kong. I'm going to hold on to the HBO Max subscription to watch that, and then I'm probably going to drop it. And yeah, we started watching Warehouse 13 because that's a show that my friend Angie, who's been on the show many times, she recommended to me. Again, that's one that hasn't grabbed me right away, but I usually give, a show like that has a full season, I'll cut it a little slack for a few episodes. I feel like with something like Lower Decks, when it only has 10 episodes in a season, it really needs to hit the ground running. I mean, they can't say like, oh, well, give us 12 episodes before you make up your mind, because they don't even have 12 episodes. So we'll see how both of those goes. We're also going through Dragon Ball Super. A long time ago, Beth and I, like 10 years or more, Beth and I finished watching all of Dragon Ball. That's Dragon Ball, Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball GT, all the movies, everything that was out for Dragon Ball at that time. Beth and I finished it. We completed a whole franchise of like 400 episodes or more. And it was like, okay, this is good. We're done. We've seen this whole thing. We know everything about Dragon Ball. Well, then they came out with Dragon Ball Z Kai, and we were like, okay, well, we can ignore that, because it's the same thing as Dragon Ball Z, just shorter, and we already watched the long version, so there's no reason to watch the short version. But then they came out with Dragon Ball Super, and I was like, oh, God. got more Dragon Ball stuff to watch. And it's not that we don't like Dragon Ball, it's just we were done and there was so much already. So it's taken us a long time, several years now to just get up to the point where like, okay, we're ready now to watch Dragon Ball Super. And so we're doing that as well. Oh, also, really, really digging Resident Alien, which is a new show that just came out in Sci-Fi. Definitely check that out. Alan Tudyk is a comedic genius, and it's great for him to have his own show that he's top billing on, and we've been enjoying that. And Snowpiercer is back, which I'm not sure I've talked about Snowpiercer on the show before, but, I mean, besides the movie, we had a whole episode about the movie, but the TV show is fantastic. I was really happy with that first season, and the second season seems to be shaping up really good as well. So it's one of those things where if I knew other people who watched Snowpiercer, we would totally do an episode of the 42 cast on it. But unfortunately, I appear to be the only person in my friends group, or at least of the people who do podcasting, that is watching Snowpiercer. So we're probably not going to do an episode on it, sadly enough. I was hoping Dragon Con would do a virtual panel on Snowpiercer. I talked to the Apocalypse Rising track, and they had said maybe they would do one, but they decided not to do one this past year, because I totally would have wanted to be on that panel, and I could have recorded that and then made that an episode of the 42 cast, but that didn't happen. But we'll see. I mean, if Dragon Con is virtual again this year, then maybe there's another shot at that. So we'll just have to see how that goes also. But anyway, yeah, I've been going on for quite a bit, and it's a long episode, so I better let you guys go. So here is the podcast already in progress. Meet our cast for this week. And so starting off, you hear him every year when we talk about The Flash, but he also loves other stuff. We've talked about Lost in Space. And of course, he and I go way back talking about comics, and that is my buddy Sean. How are you doing, Sean?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Hey, no problem. So how have things been going for you these last few months?
Well, I compared to the rest of the world, we've been having a great time. It's been a pretty interesting experience. Laura, right as this entire experience, my wife had been looking for a new job. She had been hunting for about 8 months, and she had just gotten a job right as the shutdown started, where everybody went to quarantine. And we were so concerned that they were going to just go ahead and just fire her, because well, we can't train you right now, so it's not worth bringing you on board. And turns out it was exactly the opposite. They're like, we spent too much time getting you. We're not letting you go. So they trained her. She just finished up her 90 days. And so now she's a full-blown employee with them, and they love her, and they're already talking about expanding roles, and it's fantastic. And my job has been going along really well. But I think probably the weirdest thing that's happened during the whole COVID-19 is the fact that all the conventions that I normally go and set up our shop at with Popsicle Bobbles have completely shut down. The only one for 2020 at all that's still on the schedule, maybe, and that's like 50-50, 60-40, is Dragon Con. And I'm kind of waiting for the numbers to go back up and then everybody get gun shy, and that's going to get canceled too. But other than that, no Popsicle really this year, which has led me to have a lot of free time. So I've been making artwork and playing video games, backlogging. So it's been good. It's been good. It's a little bit atypical.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's good that you have like stuff that you can do to occupy your time, and all that, because that's one of those key things, because we've had a lot of these conversations now, ever since this all started,
Definitely.
like, people talking about it, and it can get kind of depressing if you're just sitting around thinking about the state of things.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I've been playing through so many, people think I'm joking, but because I spend so much time working on Popcycle, then we have our Twitch channel now where we do broadcasts of me making stuff and whatnot, that there's almost no time for me to just kind of sit down and relax and play a game. So I've been blasting through games I've had for 5 years. I finally played and beat Halo 5. Which is a 5-year-old, the new one, Halo 6 technically is coming out I think in 6 months, so stuff like that, but I've been really getting through my backlog of games, and it's been a lot of fun, and I'm really enjoying it because I'm just kind of relaxing a bit, and you don't realize how tense you are because you're constantly moving, you're constantly trying to do things until you take a piece of stress out of your life. And I'm looking forward to going back and selling stuff again. But at the same time, I am extremely grateful for the downtime that I just happen to luck into. And that's just because Laura and I just have that privilege of having jobs that are stable enough where we can still work from home every day and still be able to kind of decompress our brains. So I'm eternally grateful to that. And it's absolutely crazy.
All right. Well, yeah, no, that is great that you got to decompress, and
Yeah.
it's good to have you back on the show.
Well, thank you for having me.
Hey, no problem. And next up, he is a guy that was going to be on our Black Lightning podcast, but due to technical issues, couldn't be. He absolutely loves comics, and he still has Thanos on his couch, and that is Eric Ratcliffe. How are you doing, Eric?
Technical difficulties. Apparently speaking difficulties as well now.
Words hard.
Harder words.
Yeah. I still think you should have just stayed on and you could have, because we could hear you just fine. You just couldn't hear us, and you should have just randomly interjected stuff.
Yeah, might have worked.
Okay.
Might have also been too much editing for you.
You're right. No, I'm well aware of that. I'm joking. So, how have you been doing, Eric?
I exist.
Okay.
Been working on projects here and there, some shelving stuff. Just finished putting together my Kingdom Hearts shelf with all my Bring Arts and Figure Arts. I have 4 Soras, 8 Keyblades up there, Mickey, Donald, Goofy, Axel, and Lee, and the very awesome Bring Arts Cloud, who looks awesome. Finished that shelf. I'm working on a Power Rangers shelf. I have 3 shelves dedicated to Cryptocurium stuff, which is awesome. Lot of binge watching. I just, for the first time, I think this year, because I think I first watched them either 2 years ago or the year last year, maybe. Now You See Me and Now You See Me Too, and the second one is definitely the stronger of the 2 films. But if people love Woody and Woody Harrelson and oh wow, why can't I think of Social Network's name?
Jesse Eisenberg?
Yeah, Jesse Eisenberg together in Zombieland. They'll probably dig both of those movies as well, where they're both different kinds of magicians, but they're magicians working together. And it has Mark Ruffalo in a pretty big supporting role as well, and Morgan Freeman's in there. And
I really think they missed the boat on those movies. It should have been, the first one was Now You See Me, and the second one should have been called Now You Don't.
Yeah.
Now You See Me Too just doesn't sound right. It should be Now You Don't.
Well, supposedly either 2021 or 2022, it'll be Now You See Me 3. So.
Yeah. No, I agree with you, though. I think I enjoyed the second one a lot more.
And just this week, I finished Persona Royale. Well, last week, because it's Sunday, I finished Persona Royale. So I've now played Persona 5 twice. Once the vanilla, and the second time with Royale, which adds about I think they said it's about 50 hours of gameplay, and it feels like it, but definitely doesn't show on my playtime. It actually shows almost 100 hours less on my playtime. I don't know how that worked. But it's a very fantastic game. If you've ever wanted to play 100-hour anime, it's well worth it. It's a very fun game. It's like if the Runaways were thieves instead of. It's like Runaways meets Wanted, but with the thief homage instead of like the supervillain hook. It's really fun though. It's easily one of my favorite games of all time now. And then I'm playing Rage 2 right now, which is kind of fun. It's basically Fallout if it was directed by George Miller.
Okay. Well, it is good that you are keeping busy with stuff to do.
Oh, yeah. It's the only way we can keep whatever's left of our sanity, right?
Right. Exactly. All right. Well, it's great having you back on the show, Eric.
Always good to be here when the internet decides to work for us.
Right. And finally, coming at us from the other side of the mirror, it is my nemesis, Ryan Guthrie. How are you doing, Ryan?
I'm doing pretty good. I unlike Eric, I've abandoned my sanity a long time ago, and I've been better off without it.
That sounds about right.
Yeah. It just gets in the way usually.
But yeah, I think this idea of you coming from the mirror universe actually has a lot of merit.
You say I'm coming from the mirror universe. Has it ever occurred to you that maybe you're the mirror universe and I'm normal?
I don't know. Do you have a goatee right now?
No, sadly, because of work, I've had to shave all facial hair.
Okay. Thought I might have gotten you on that one.
Yeah. But if you'd asked a couple months ago, Plus,
although eventually you're going to be like, Eric, your agonizer, please.
Well, I could make a joke by doing this podcast, But I won't do that. I'll spare you.
Okay.
No.
So how are
I'm pretty good. We're I was kind of thinking how I was going to answer that question when you came to me, and the only thing I got is we're at that stage in this whole chaos where I'm still working, so that's great, I guess. But my wife has been furloughed, but we're doing fine. But we're at that stage now where boxes show up and she has no idea what they are anymore. And it's I'll get a notification. Oh, we've received a box. We gotta go pick it up. And I'm like, what am I going to pick up? Is it big or small? Is it heavy or light? And she's like, I don't know, Ryan. I guess I could check our credit card bill, but we got a spiralizer now. I didn't even know that was a thing. But so we can make zucchini noodles. So I guess I'm into that now.
Okay. Yeah, it is kind of funny right now when you get the package and you're like, I don't remember ordering anything. What is this?
Yeah, I mean, I totally believe I ordered this, but I don't know what it is.
Well, no, I mean, just before you open the package, being like, what is this? I don't remember ordering anything.
I'm looking at where it's from, and that's no help whatsoever because it's just like 3 letters or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, oh, this is something I ordered like 4 months ago.
Yeah, that's true.
Now I remember.
We did just get some hand sanitizer that we ordered at the beginning of all this. I mean, it's back on shelves now. It hasn't been a problem. I completely forgot about it, but we ordered some back in late February or March or whatever, and it just got here. Oh, okay, so now we have more, and it smells like crap, but it's just lemon flavored, but it's not. I don't know what this stuff is, but it's not lemon.
This is not lemons.
No. Or at least no lemon.
First world problems here, Ryan.
Yeah. I should send it back.
Right, exactly. I have my hand sanitizer, but it doesn't smell like lemons.
Exactly. Luckily, everyone's wearing masks, so they'll never know.
Oh man. Well, it's good that you have you're at a place where this is the stuff you worry about.
I mean, this is not the stuff I worry about, but this is the stuff I focus on because it's better.
Yeah, no, I understand. All right, well, it's good having you back on the show, Ryan.
It's good to be back.
All right, so next up, you know what it is? It's time for our 5-minute controversy, where 5-minute controversy is just a way for us to talk about a topic and just sort of loosen it up before we talk about the actual topic for the show. And today I wanted to ask, because, it's been a while, the movie theater is all closed, the late March-ish, at least all the ones around here did. And I think like Bloodshot was what was going through the movie theaters at the time. So there's a lot of movies we've all been looking forward to that have been on hold. And, there's talk now heading into June that movie theaters are going to start reopening on various phased plans or whatever. And so my question to everybody is, do we think it's a good idea? Is this too soon? Does the desire to watch these movies, even factor into it based on a safety concern? So, let's just start with you on this one, Eric. What do you think?
Yes, but with a caveat.
Okay.
And that caveat is I have been seeing the resurgence of the drive-in movie theater. Especially the last month or so, I've actually seen I want to say at least in between 3 and 5 different locations from different friends across the country checking out different drive-in theaters that are doing like promotions and actually like seeing kind of a resurgence of something that had been dying within the last, I want to say 15-20 years. Yeah. So it's kind of great to see the resurgence of the drive-in movie theater come back, and I kind of like that idea more so than, you know, like going into a theater and being in a room full of people who may or may not be carrying something that none of us would know.
I do wonder how many locations there are for drive. I mean, I know there was the one in South Carolina, the Big Mo. I don't even know if it's still operating.
The one down in Beaufort?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's still there.
Okay. Yeah, and you know, I do wonder how many, and if it would even be worth like the studio's while to release just the drive-ins, if that was the only venue, like if they could make enough in sales to justify.
Well, I feel like it kind of helps bring back the feeling of like the event movie, kind of feeling like an event again. Like, I think that's half of the fun of the and I know I've completely warped the 5-minute controversy here, but
no, no, that's a good point. It's just because, yeah, I mean, it's it is something that I think people don't think about, but at the same time, it comes back to my question of, you know, justifying the opening of, or to the releasing of movies. I think they're going to have people in seats at regular movie theaters to be able to make enough money. And then it comes back to, is it worth doing that when, you know, COVID-19 numbers are still rising?
I mean, not to warp it, but I would continue by saying I really like the idea of the drive-in kind of making a comeback, instead of people being inside of the movie theaters and kind of accidentally or risking the chance of continuing to spread a virus that is definitely not going away, sadly, anytime soon.
When you really look at what's happening right now, we're really seeing a problem that Hollywood has been trying to get away from for the past 20-something years, since the advent of the internet and high internet speeds have become more commonplace, is the fact that there's a certain contingent of people who would much rather just watch a movie as soon as it comes out in the comfort of their home and pay a premium rate. And Universal has shown that model works, and they've been actually able to put up some pretty decent numbers with that idea. And of course, that's made, you know, movie theater owners very upset. And I think that's because movie theaters have been offering essentially the same service for the better part of 80 to 90 years. There's been very little innovation in what you do at a movie theater. You get your ticket, you pick up some food, usually popcorn or something, you go sit in a seat and you're all crowded together. And I think this opportunity that most theater owners and chains are missing is the people who are not worrying about this are the people who have specialty theaters. You know, Alamo Drafthouse, they're going to do fine because they offer a premium way of viewing these movies. They have premium seating. You know, they have, you got to be quiet. You're in for an experience. And then they're also promising to keep everything wiped down and absolutely sterile between viewings. Of course, that does not help with the enclosed environment. But what I think will happen is what we're really seeing is we're seeing that this crux of people want to see new movies and they do want the movie experience, but they don't want to risk their health. And I think the theater chains that are starting to turn into that, maybe they should be renovating all their theaters right now and coming up with better ways of presenting their product. Is really the smarter way of going around and doing this. The multiplex of, you know, 170 people all crammed into a little tiny space isn't going to be nearly as appealing as the theater that has maybe 100 seats, but they're spaced out nicely. They can recline. You know, it has a much more kind of like intimate feel, so that way you can sit with your person and you know, watch a movie and you don't feel like, you know, everybody else is kind of leaning up against you. So I feel on one hand it's a smart move to start thinking about reopening theaters, but I really think the crux of the situation, just like Eric said, is to come up with a way to entice people to come to the movie experience and to give them a reason to go back to the theaters, which is to create a different kind of appeal. And I think drive-thrus are a great example. I think the cinema grills, you know, where you can order your dinner and watch a movie, is a great example. And those super luxury theaters are a great example. And then On the other side, Hollywood just does, day and date releases. So for those who don't want to go out and have an experience, get out of the house for a little while, they can just enjoy their movie at home. And the longer the theater system fights that and doesn't find a way to innovate against that, the sooner they're going to go to the cinema graveyard.
Yeah. No, I think that you're hitting on something I was going to bring up, which is the idea of they've got to do something about it. And whether that's just suddenly companies start putting up drive-thrus all over, or whether it's renovating existing ones, the enclosed space of it all, I think, is the real problem.
Right.
And, you can even say like, oh, well, we'll only have like every other seat or whatever. But I mean, that's still not enough. Right. Exactly. Yeah. Ryan, what do you think about all this?
Well, I mean, if you want to just talk about from a safety aspect, it honestly doesn't make any difference at this point in time. If we're going to open restaurants and people are going to go to restaurants, if we're going to open bars and malls and everything else, you don't really you've got to probably walk through a mall to get to the movie theater anyways, I mean, it's and you probably went to dinner at a restaurant before you're going to the movie or whatever. It's not much of a safety issue, or as in regards to additional exposure. Now, if you're still being smart and staying home as much as possible and only getting takeout and then all that other stuff, then yeah, that's going to be a bigger risk factor for you. But if you're trying to live as close to a normal life as you can, then going to a movie theater at this point in time, after you sit at that dinner table or that restaurant table, your odds are increasing, but not as much as to maybe argue that it's necessary to keep theaters closed anymore. Since, we're kind of all branching out on other subjects about this, before COVID, I remember reading that Congress or maybe it's at a particular state, but I think it's actually nationally, but they were going to, they were considering revoking the law that prevented studios from owning their own theaters, right? So we were going to go back to kind of like a vertical integration where Universal Studios could also have a chain. They could buy, Cinemark or AMC or whatever. And I was against that at the time. I kept thinking about how Disney's, deal with Star Wars, how they kept wanting more and more share of the movie ticket, was probably just destroying theaters. And to some extent, it definitely is. But now I'm kind of thinking that might be what saves movie theaters. You'd only if you went to Universal theaters, you'd only be able to see Universal movies probably. But or thinking maybe not. I don't know. But money's money after all. But that might be what's necessary to have that big backing, because movie theaters, even the big chains, their profits are in the pennies. I mean, they make their money off this food, and most people sneak that in anyways. So I think if we're going to have any sort of future with a sit-down theater that isn't drive-thrus, it's going to be probably some sort of vertical integration with the big studios. And yeah, they are going to be those smaller, more comfy reclining. God, I love the ones. And that's one of the few. They're great seats, but that's also one of the few innovations that they've made in the past few years that I think is smart. That and reserved seating. Yes. I mean, granted, I will always have fond memories of waiting in line for 1 or 2 or 3 hours, or in the case of Phantom Menace, 12 hours to see a movie and having that experience with the other people in line. But, I'm older now and I don't want to do that crap anymore. I want to come in 5 minutes before the previews start.
Right.
So, yeah, I think there is a way to do it right, or to do it as safely as possible, but it's going to be impossible to do it completely safe, if that makes sense.
No, I think I got what everybody's saying, and I kind of agree with it all. I don't think any of us are really comfortable with the idea of just movie theaters opening and just doing things as they are now. It's got to be, they've got to develop in some way or do something, whether it's a bunch of new drive-ins, being built. I mean, that would be great if the big movie chains started opening their own, because, right now drive-ins are all mom and pop type things where somebody just owns some space and has put up a drive-in. If we suddenly started seeing like a lot of big, push into that, but that also requires space and, building, putting up the, screens and all that kind of stuff. So, I mean,
Nathan, I just thought of this. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but here actually in Charleston, there is a small theater called the Terrace. It's kind of like the Nickelodeon was where we grew up in Columbia, where it has like 2 screens, maybe it has like 4 screens, but it's a very small theater. And so what they did is they basically figured out a way to essentially they bought the back of the building so they could start to project movies, and they'll do double features and stuff. So they turned their theater into a drive-through for the duration of the COVID stuff. So every night they're doing these double features, and they still have like all their concessions and their food and their drinks and whatnot, and they just bring them out to you, but you stay in your car. So that's something that they have done. So it is interesting to see that some theaters are actually rolling into this temporarily just to figure out a way to keep, people employed and keep dollars rolling in. So that was just since you were saying, people trying to innovate, I was like, oh, I forgot to tell you about that. So
sure. Yeah, and that's exactly the right kind of thing. Like I say, they got to figure out a way to make it safe for people, because some places are opening everything anyway, it seems, and so it's people who want to engage in that and don't worry about getting sick, then that's open to them. But I think for the movie, because remember a lot of these movies, when they invest, and I'm talking about the big blockbusters, when they invest hundreds of millions of dollars into them, they need huge numbers of people out there. So if you're going to have a depressed, theater, because, we released the movie and people can go to theaters because they're open, but, only like 25% of the people who normally go to those movies are going because everybody else is actually, worried and staying at home, does that get them the numbers that they need? So it's that kind of innovation. It's that kind of thing that allow people to watch these movies safely, because people still want a movie experience, right? I mean, even if you open it for streaming, a lot of people, they still wanted that, and especially when you invested that much money. Because the thing I've heard about Universal is that we don't really know how much profit they're making from Trolls. We know that they sold, or a lot of people downloaded it, but we don't know how much profit that actually got them.
Well, the thing about Trolls, though, is the act of diminishing returns is always on the production side as well. So the production was less than their first one. And this is stuff that I've talked to my guys who actually work out in the field over there. And they said that Trolls was not an incredibly expensive movie. The reason why Trolls wasn't going to make as much money as it would have if they had planned this out a little better was that they did an entire international campaign for a theatrical release. So they had to eat the cost of that. So basically right now insiders are saying that at because the last time I talked about this, they were at $100 million. It at the very least broke even, but that's also including the massive absorption of the ad campaign, which was at least 30 something to $50 million. So you have to remember that that's a huge amount of money that they basically had to eat on stuff in theaters soon. None of it applies. It has no impact. So they basically had a loss leader on that. But you also have to remember that because Universal did go directly to digital with the Invisible Man, which did incredible numbers, and that's only like a $5 million movie. So that thing that completely destroyed the Way Back, Trolls World Tour, all that stuff. It allowed them to keep all of their employees under their theme parks and all their other divisions employed. I have a lot of friends who work at the theme parks and whatnot, and they have enjoyed at the very least 80% to 100% of all their paychecks continuing to go forward, because Universal didn't want to furlough people. They wanted to keep everybody employed, and this was a way for them to continue to bring money in. So I give Universal a lot of credit for basically swinging the first punch in that fight that we all know was coming sooner or later.
Yeah. No, that's all good. That's a good point too. I mean, it's one of those things. I mean, the industry needs to move forward, or everybody's going to go out of business, and a lot of people are going to lose their jobs. But they need to do it safely.
It's a matter of readjusting the metrics by which we measure this, right? We've got this mindset that box office is the only way to gauge the success of a movie, and it's never going to be that way again. And so, how are we going to look at this? Are we going to do theater sales and online sales, or drive-through sales? I mean, is it per car? Is it because people? We're going to be back to the day when people are sneaking people in the trunks again. So I mean, we're going to have to find a new way. And I feel for that. I feel for like the movies that should have been blockbusters this year, like Black Widow and all the others, because we're not going to have any true way of knowing how successful they would have been against that old metric.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, they're gonna have to innovate and do something, I think, to get things to where they need them to be. But and that's what I'm not seeing. Although Sean's point was a good one about the movie theater converting to a drive-in style. So hopefully we'll see more things like that happening, because everything I'm hearing is just like, oh well, like maybe they'll just sit every other seat or something like that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they have to innovate. That's the bottom line. So.
Yeah. All right. Well, that has been our 5-minute controversy for this time. And but before we start talking about The Flash, let's pause for a promo from Another Fine Podcast.
I'm Brittany Trino. I'm Martha Bartlett. And this is But First, Let's Talk Nerdy. Clink. Oh, how about that? That's going to be our promo. Done. Cut it, Kevin. Send it. Bam.
But first, let's talk nerdy. It's two nerd girls talking about nerdy things over a couple of drinks. What could go wrong? Part of the ESO network.
And we're back. And like we talked about at the beginning of the show, we are talking about The Flash Season 6. And unfortunately, as with Supergirl and Batwoman also, The Flash was affected by COVID-19. They had to shut down production midway through episode 20, so they were only able to air 19 episodes out of the 22 episode season that they had planned. So it was already a season that has something against it. They didn't get to have the finish that they wanted, but that also potentially opens them up some possibilities for next year. But before we talk too much about that, let's talk about the season that we had. So it was broken up into two halves, like a lot of the Berlanti show seasons do now. We had sort of the A story with Bloodwork in the beginning of the season, and then we had the new Mirror Mistress, I've heard her called in some places, in the second half. And so just out of curiosity now, how did people feel about the Bloodwork story? So let's start with you on that one, Ryan. What did you think about that first half of the season? We're sort of counting down to Crisis, and we had Bloodwork as our main villain.
I feel like God. I feel like the memory of heroes wasn't already sullied enough.
Oh, poor Mohinder.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The sad part is I love that actor, but he just can't get a break. And it's almost the exact same thing. It's the exact same storyline.
Ryan, you're breaking up.
Mohinder's pissed is what's happening.
Yeah, no, exactly. He starts bad-mouthing Mohinder.
Mohinder's like, don't you talk no Sully
up. Right, yeah.
Yeah. Hello?
All right, you sound
1, 2, 3,
fine?
4, 5.
That sounded okay.
Take it from the top.
Bad-mouth Mohinder.
Don't bad-mouth Mohinder.
Yeah. Exactly. I mean, never mind. They recycled pretty much the exact same storyline from him from Heroes, but going bad, in the pursuit of science. But sure, whatever. But basically, I think you can encapsulate that whole storyline with the name Bloodwork. This is not a Cisco name, and it shows. This is why villains should not name themselves. Everything was wrong about that, and it just I can't even how they capped it off with what was it, The Last Temptation of the Flash or something, or Barry Allen.
Yeah.
It was nothing. I honestly, going through the Bloodwork knowing it was going to end with Crisis, my thought was maybe Crisis will wipe this all away like it never happened,
Right.
and I can forget about it.
Well, my biggest problem with it is they kept insisting that, if Barry will only let Bloodwork infect him, then he'll survive Crisis. And I'm like, I'm sorry, antimatter, it's not going to protect you against antimatter, okay? You know, it's like, I don't care how good this stuff is. If you disintegrate, you're done. So I didn't even buy it when it was like, oh yes, you could accept this and be evil, but you would live,
I don't even pay attention to the science anymore in the Flash. It's just ridiculous. I mean, they decided they want to do a zombie apocalypse, and this is what we got,
Right.
Legends did it better,
All right. Eric, what do you think about the Bloodwork storyline?
I mean, I love that actor too, and I thought the two-parter at the end right before Crisis started up would have been a lot stronger if we weren't all going, oh yeah, the Flash has to go into Crisis,
Right.
It's like, oh yeah, we're totally losing Barry. That's exactly what's happening here.
Yeah. No, you're right. I mean, that did undercut things quite a bit.
Because I mean that I always blank on the actual actor's name, but he had some fantastic scenes, both pre and post fully embracing Bloodwork. I mean, he had some great scenes with basically on and off at least 3 major members of the cast, and I mean, it gave us a great Ralph moment. It gave us some great Killer Frost and Caitlin stuff. Gave us some really decent Barry stuff, and even a Cisco moment or two. And then it just all felt rushed because they had to get all the hits in before Crisis actually began.
Yeah, I mean, the whole storyline I think would have been stronger if the whole promise of I can prevent death wasn't but you have to become my mind controlled puppet, little zombie creature to do so. I mean, I felt like to me there was really no temptation because it's there's no good side to this. There were so many ways that it could have been interesting. It could have been compelling. That there could have been a real choice, but I never really felt like we got there because it's like, yeah, okay, so you can live, but as a zombie puppet. Okay, who wants that? Who wants to take that deal? And Sean, what do you think about Bloodwork?
This is what happens when you try to make an entire half season about a character who's had 3 entire issues written about him ever. This was now we've talked about my undying love of the Flash, and one of the things I've always talked about is, as much as I love the Flash, I will also punch it right in the face when it completely trips on its own feet, and Bloodwork was a huge trip, and it's not because of the idea of Bloodwork was bad. Bloodwork, the idea was kind of a cool idea, but the problem is that nobody's developed his motivations in the comics, much less in the show. So they had to kind of come up with it all on the cuff. And what you get is, like Ryan said, a recycled Heroes story, where they're like, oh, well, let's get the guy from Heroes and he can be a good guy that goes bad again for the science. And it doesn't sell because it didn't sell in Heroes. So it's like, I know Berlanti thinks he can do no wrong sometimes, but it's like, come on, just suck up the fact that this was not a good idea and move along. 2, I think Eric's point towards trying to fit this all in prior to the break, knowing that they were going to start developing Mirror Master post-Crisis, really speaks to the fact that they were just using Bloodwork as a filler. And that's what he felt like the entire time was a filler. But the third thing, and I think this is probably the thing that upsets me the most about Bloodwork, is Bloodwork in the comics is a gory character. An absolute if you've seen the illustrations, the dude looks like he's something out of Hellraiser. He looks like a skinned body. So he's walking around, he's leaving bloody footprints. He's a horror, mural. And we got basically, Venom. He just looks like Venom, right? I mean, there was nothing appalling about him. There's nothing about him when you saw him that said Bloodwork, and it really undersells the entire concept, So, and the other part of it is, of course, that you're building up to Crisis on Infinite Earths, and that honestly should have been the focus of the first half of the season, and it was. I mean, the whole point of this season was basically you have Crisis. And the Flash, of course, was the flagship of getting us to and through Crisis. And then afterwards, you basically have a post-Crisis world. And this whole Bloodwork thing that they kept trying to work in and trying to make Barry, doubt himself for the last temptation. And it felt too forced. And I think that's because this season really highlights one of the problems that you can have with the Flash when you try too hard. And they did this back in season 3 with Savitar, which is when you try to make him super gloomy and super depressed about everything that's happening, the Flash does not work. In the face of unyielding odds and hopeless death, the Flash is still your beacon of hope. And if you don't believe me, just look at Crisis on Infinite Earths Part 3, where we get OG 1990 Barry Allen, and he knows what he's about to do, and you roll a tear. So when you make the Flash mopey, you hurt your show, and they did that a lot this season, especially in the first half.
Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, filler is exactly the word that I was going to use, because that's what it felt like. It's like we're marking time to Crisis. There were a few things they needed to do, and we can talk about some of those. Like they introduced Nash,
right?
Which, Tom Cavanaugh doing his best to pull out, like, all right, I've given you like 15 wells. Can I do a 16?
Right.
And so we get this.
Can we just bring back a wells for crying out loud already? Come on. Like...
Well, I think they're trying to have their cake and eat it too now, where now all the wells are inside of him, so they can always have him be like, now I'm channeling Harry, or now I'm channeling, any of the other ones. So
yeah, pre-Crisis Wells was more or less intolerable. I mean, Tom Cavanaugh did what he could, but I honestly, every time he showed up, I was just like, oh God, and I was just like, please no. But of course, once he goes into his Crisis role, and then afterwards, he became a much more interesting character, and then we see Tom Cavanaugh really kind of grab it and do his Cavanaughness.
Right. Well, the thing is, I mean, it's like the poor man. I mean, there's only so many ways that you can like depict a character, right? And so after he's done like 15 different interpretations of Wells, it really is, I think, asking too much, to be like let's do another one, And so it's like, it had to be more about the trope, right? And so the trope was, I'm like the Indiana Jones Wells.
But they're going through the list. We had Sherlock Wells last season. This season's Indiana Jones Wells. Yeah, I mean,
and of course they blew so many archetypes with the Council of Wells. I mean, just through the Council of Wells, we had, I know for a fact, I think it's like 8 to 10 individual Wellses. Wells's.
Wells's, I think, is
Wells's. And of course, then a few of those have been brought back over, a couple times. So I mean, they really did. And you have 6 seasons of main Wells's. So at that point, you're looking at approximately 16 to almost maybe 20 Wells archetypes that he has worked through. Jesus, that's 20 seasons of individual Wells characters that we could have had. And they were only in season 6 and going into season 7, so it's a little rough.
Yeah, they've got it. I think now they're done though, because Crisis has kind of made it. So I think that they're only going to pull from maybe like previous ones to like have him channel them or whatever, because I think it's too much. Eric, you haven't said anything about Nash. What do you think about him?
I like Indiana Wells.
Yeah.
I do, actually.
Well, and the thing is, it's like, I like it because he's not just trying to be Indiana Jones. He's still Wells. He's still arrogant, and he's still, that same kind of Wells character, but with that Indiana Jones sort of like trappings on top of him. So I did like that they tried to spin it a little bit. But and then Allegra was the other character that they introduced. Honestly, I don't really have a whole lot to say about Allegra. They certainly want us to care. And I think the connection with Nash is probably the most compelling stuff that they've done with her. But every time it's like, well, let's go to the, Central City Citizen, and watch what the, everybody's doing over there. I'm always kind of like, okay, this is a nice scene.
So Allegra's fine, but then you have Mr. Terrific 2.0, who I like a lot better, actually. He's fun, and I like that he's going to be recurring next season.
Yeah, no, I was going to get to him. But
don't you dare besmirch the name of Chunk.
Yeah.
But we'll come back to that. I'm sorry. Continue. You just stepped on a line, sir.
All right, so Allegra. What do people think about Allegra?
I think
Sean?
I'm sorry, I was jumping.
No, you just go in there, man.
No, I was thinking that it's clear that they're starting to run out of things to do with like Cisco. It's clear that they're doing something very interesting with the Caitlyn character, and with the actress just having her kid. She'll obviously probably be taking a slightly less active role in the week to week episodes. So she'll probably want somebody that can kind of tag in. So developing a new character that can come into Team Flash, I think, is extremely important right now. And the fact that she's a little bit more of a rogue, I kind of see her as like a metahuman Catwoman kind of deal. I think that would be kind of a cool thing. Or the Indiana Jones parlance is also really good. I think that would be an interesting way to kind of develop her in, because that's something that we haven't really brought into the team. The closest we've had to that point would be Ralph, but Ralph was more of a disgraced cop because everybody thought he was a liar, but he wasn't. So I think she has a lot of merit to her, but I think that because they were trying to juggle so many things this season, she didn't have a chance to shine until right at the end of the season. Basically, when you were having the showdowns on the second half of the season, I think that she started to really kind of tighten up, and we could see where they were going with her. But she still needs more time to cook.
Yeah, no, I think that's probably close to how I feel about it, because I don't really have a problem with her character per se. It just seems like she's just kind of like an also-ran, right? It's just kind of like she's there. We're not really doing much with her. She's got this personal thing with her cousin. It's her cousin, right? Is the other one? Yeah. And they had that sort of storyline. It helped get them into this whole black hole storyline, but I don't. I do like the whole Nash thing, though, that like he cared about this other version of her, but she finds it creepy and sort of stalkery that he's all over her. But like at the same time, sort of see it from his point of view of, I have another chance, with this person. And so I kind of like that whole dynamic. Ryan, what do you think about Allegra?
Yeah, I kind of agree, I think, with everyone else, where the actress did the character as well as she could. She's not a bad character. It's not her per se. I think it's this sort of weird need the show has to have a kind of younger, inexperienced woman / girl, learning her way with the team. I mean, it's Jessie or it's Nora or now it's Allegra. It almost feels like they throw this character in when they don't need her. And it's just, I don't hate the character, but I kind of resent the time that they take up from the other characters that I'm more invested in.
Yeah, I think that might be more of why I'm kind of iffy on her, is just because it feels like, like when we'll have episodes where like Ralph just disappears for 2 or 3 episodes at a time, and I'm like, holy crap, where's Ralph?
Yeah.
Want more Ralph, but that's okay. We're gonna learn each and every detail of Allegra's life. It's fine.
Well, I mean, I think that's because honestly, this is my private theory, is that we're going to get a Ralph and Sue spinoff eventually. I really think they're going to spin them off.
Don't do that to me, because then I'm going to hope, and then when it doesn't happen, I'm going to be depressed.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying, I think people really enjoy the Ralph, the elongated man character, and I think that there's some legs on that. At least as a, I don't know if they, I kind of wish DC and CW would get down and do kind of like the DC Power Hour or something, where you have you do an hour, maybe only 12 episodes a year, but it's like a half-hour segment dedicated to a character, and so for the whole season you'll get half-hour segments of Ralph and Sue off an adventure, and the other half hour is Hawkman and Hawkgirl or something. And then the next season, if people really liked Ralph and Sue, they bring them back for another season. If not, they can swap out new characters, and they can expand the Berlanti-verse a lot without having to dedicate it to just one character. I think that would be kind of a cool thing to do, because they used to do that, back in the day with cartoons and whatnot, and see what characters really got traction. But I really feel that Berlanti, the creators back there, I think that they're really feeling Ralph. I think that they're starting to kind of go maybe Ralph and Sue can stand on their own 2 feet, kind of like how they're spinning off Lois and Clark from Supergirl. So I don't know, that's just pure speculation on my part, but that's my gut feeling, is that I think we're going to have a really fantastic Ralph and Sue season next year, because the actress who plays Sue has already kind of intimated that they've got some big plans for her. And if it goes the way that I assume it would go, it would basically wind up spinning that off. So who knows?
All right. Yeah, no, we're going to talk. I want to dedicate some time to Sue and Ralph. So just put a pin on that.
Right.
All right, and so yeah, Chunk hasn't really been in it that much. You know, he's gotten like his, the first episode of the season, and then he got I don't know, one or two cameos.
I was so happy.
I remember you posted on Facebook. You posted like an actual comics panel of him. You were like,
I was like, You guys have no idea how much I love Chunk. Nathan knows because he's had to go through comic stuff with me. Like I made him sit down and read the books. Like, you need to read about Chunk. Chunk was one of those characters I always loved. Chester R. Unk, Chester P. Runk. Sorry. I loved that Chunk was always this character that nobody understood. He has this power that he can't control because he has a black hole inside of him that creates a pocket universe where if you get absorbed, you're stuck kind of like this weird little, alternate dimension. I always thought that was kind of a cool thing that, since people just didn't know what to make of him, they treated him as a villain. And the Flash was the one who came out and was like, maybe he's not such a bad guy. Mm-hmm. And like they become friends, and like anecdotally they talk about the fact that Chunk always sends Wally West birthday cards and stuff, and like they hang out, and like Chunk is always in Wally's life even though we don't see him a lot. And so when they said they were going to cast Chester, I was like, oh my god, yes. Mm-hmm. So and I mean honestly he is I hate to say this for people who are fans of Cisco, but I mean it's clear he's Cisco 2.0. At some point I forget
Carlos
his first name.
Valdez.
Yeah, I was saying Valdez. I was like, what the hell's his first name? If Carlos Valdez pulls the I don't want to be here anymore trigger, they have their backup. And I think that Chunk is a pretty good substitute. I really like the actor. I like his nervousness because it's a different energy than what Cisco has. Cisco was always very kind of like laissez-faire with how he approached the superheroics. And Chunk has that same knowledge, but he's so afraid of offending people because he's like, I don't deserve to stand on hallowed soil. And I think that's a hallowed ground. And so his reverence and nervousness, I think, could make an interesting dynamic. But I loved Chunk. I'm so happy that they brought him in. And I was kind of bummed when they said, welcome to Team Flash. And then he vanishes for the rest of the season.
Someone's got to watch the door of the place.
Right? Seriously.
Right. Well, that's true. God, everybody gets in there.
He's on monitor duty way down the front floor. Just...
Yeah, I think the writing's on the wall with Carlos Valdez. Like, last season it was clear that like they wrote it into such a place that if he wanted out, they had him out, and they must have gotten him to agree to do another season. But I think that this was kind of like all right, but at the end of this season, we're going to segue to Chunk, and we're probably going to have a handoff. So we didn't get there because they had to shut down the season early, but I suspect that after the first 3 episodes next year, if they stay with the original scripts, which it sounds like, everything I've read sounds like they're going to try to do the 3 scripts as close as possible as they can, but with any like restrictions that when they go back to filming, they might have to change a few things around. So yeah, I really suspect Cisco is out.
Yeah, and honestly, if we're being completely honest, and I would love to hear everybody else's opinion on this, but I'm not feeling it. Ever since it became blatantly apparent, like at the end of season 4, beginning of season 5, that he wanted out, like it feels like he's just showing up to work. It doesn't feel like the Cisco we had from like the first 3-4 seasons.
Yep.
And honestly, and this is I don't mean this to besmirch him, because when he was on, but it's very clear that if his heart's not in this project, he cannot lie well enough to do it. So don't let the door hit you on the way out. I would much rather have a new character there that's tearing it up and making me laugh and having a good time and wanting to be there versus an actor who's doing it out of perfunctory reasons.
He's been phoning it in.
Really, definitely. He really has.
Yeah, I mean, they gave him that episode devoted to him this season with the gypsy death, which, okay, the off-screen gypsy death I thought was pretty offensive.
Does anybody know why that happened?
No, and in fact, even the actress was like, no, I would have come back if they had ever asked me to. So, I mean, it wasn't on her. It wasn't a thing. Weird. She was like, I'm done with you guys and I never want to do it. So they killed her off.
But in fairness, if they can only afford her or Danny Trejo, they made the right choice.
Well, I sincerely doubt they pull the same damn rate. I mean, come on, right? I mean, come on.
I'm just saying, they're saving their money for Crisis.
Yeah. Everything about that episode just made me mad.
Yeah.
It's just everything. Oh, they pulled so many games on that episode, and then it's the whole thing of like they even show the death death, and I'm like, okay, if you couldn't bring the actress back, don't show the death, but with like hair all over her face, so it's clearly another person.
The bad wig.
The bad wig. It's just like, oh, come on. I liked Gypsy a lot, and I was sad that she was gone.
There's been fishiness around the Berlanti-verses last year. I mean, ever since we found out the stuff with Ralph and his wife and how their relationship ended with Legends, like other people not being invited to come back, the rushed throwaway line of Earth 1 basically, was it, which one's Harry's Earth? I always forget.
Earth 2.
Harry's Earth 2.
Earth 2, excuse me, yeah. Earth 2 being like a throwaway line, and even the JSA Earth, which I'm blanking on that Earth number too.
It's like 15 or something like that, I think.
Yeah,
15 or 16.
I mean, there's so much of it is rushed, and then all these weird like actors being kind of dismissed out of their contracts without even so much of a hey, do you want to come back? It's like, no, we're writing you off. See you later. Like,
what they did to Brendan Ruth.
It's all this weirdness. That's what I'm saying, though. It's like,
well, I knew that Brandon Routh was leaving. I knew him and his wife was leaving, but I didn't know that there was any weirdness other than the fact that they just decided.
Yeah, it was bad because somebody on Twitter said hey man, you can still change your mind, and he said it wasn't my decision.
Really?
Like, he sounded bitter. Like, it was like not my call is what he said, or something like that.
If you listen to his interview with Michael Rosenbaum, there's it's fishy. Something's up there, and it's not on.
He clearly wanted to stay, and they didn't let him stay.
Maybe it's because he wanted his wife to work with him, and they didn't want to keep the wife around. I don't know.
Yeah.
Weird.
It's hard. Yeah, I mean, who knows what's going on there? But yeah, no, and I don't even know if this thing with Gypsy was connected at all with it. But yeah, that's
what I'm saying. Like, some of it is like the weirdness with some of these actors and their contracts being up, and like other parts of it feel like the writers' room rushing things. I mean, the fact that like Arrow's last season basically felt like what a lot of Flash could have been doing in the first part of the season, but instead they threw it over to Arrow, which it's like, oh, here's the street level hero, but he's going to be the one tackling all the stuff with the Monitor and all these different Earths, versus Flash, which has for the last couple seasons literally been, oh, here's Cisco jumping us to this other Earth. Here's, here's this alternate Barry, or here's this alternate Flash, and all this stuff. And it's like, nope, all the alternate Earth stuff goes to Arrow.
Yeah, I think the only reason why they did that with Arrow, though, if we're being completely fair, is I think because Arrow was the flagship show, because it was the show that started the DCW. And it was what got us to this point. I think that was their way of honoring it. And also, let's remember the fact that Arrow basically was finished after its last season. And the actor,
Stephen Amell.
Thank you, Stephen Amell.
Yep.
He basically was like, "Oh, I'm not missing Crisis."
Right.
So he basically was like, I'm going to be here for it. So I really think that it was much more of they were saying a grand farewell to the actor and to the show, because that was the place that got us all there. And then Flash, of course, did the heavy lifting on the emotional side of it. Whereas, Stephen Amell got to jump universes.
Right. Well, I mean, it's so weird because it's clear that they're trying to write Cisco out, but at the same time, they undid the whole thing of Iris is the leader of Team Flash with the beginning of the season, where it's like, no, Cisco's the leader of Team Flash if Barry isn't here, and so it, they did that whole thing. It was like they were trying to give Cisco, this is your position, this is your thing now on the team, and that would have made sense if they were actually going to do the Barry to Wally transition.
Don't get me started.
As then in the second half of the season, Cisco's the guy that's sort of leading the team, but Wally is the Flash.
You're just trying to piss me off here, Nathan. You're just trying to piss me off here.
So it seems like they didn't even know what they were doing, I think, or were doing different things. So instead, since Oliver got to do all the stuff actually leading up to Crisis, the Flash was left with, we got this newspaper article. Let's obsess about it for 9 episodes.
Can we talk about how crappy Team Sentinel is? I am so done with every single time they cut to Iris and Team Sentinel, I'm like dying of fire. I'm like, I don't want to know anything about
No, I know. Well, it's like that they want to build up Camilla as this main character and Allegra, and it's nice to see Iris actually doing report. It got us 6 seasons to get there, but finally Iris is actually acting like a reporter, and it's like great, and I'm okay with her. It's just the add-ons they don't matter.
Well, I think honestly what it is if you look at, like, to go back to the 90s, if you look back at how they handled like Lois and Clark, right? The newsroom was never the epicenter of this is where the drama is going to happen for the team. It was where they got their job assignments and they went out into the field. Whereas for the Sentinel, it was like, no, our one room news office is where all of our drama is going to happen. Like, there was very rarely let's go into the field, and it just felt like it we've said it before already. It felt like filler to me. You know, and I like the actresses, I like the characters. I just think that, you know, well, why can't they just have their filler moments over in, you know, Star Labs? It's not like that place isn't big enough to hold like 15 different businesses,
right? You know, there are whole like secret armies of villains just hiding out in Star Labs, you know, because they don't. I mean,
seriously, they even proved their. They even proved the point last season when Nora showed them the freaking lounge, right? And that's when you find out Joe had his secret lounge. It's like there are whole sections of Star Labs that they don't even mess with, right? It's like, come on.
I've never seen this room before.
Hiding. They're just lost.
Right? They're just, I can't find the door.
Wouldn't that be funny if they pulled out like some villain we haven't seen since season 1? It's been like, oh man, I'm so glad you found me. I've been wandering these halls for 5 years.
Magenta just shows back up. She's like, I've been bending walls and they just bend back. What the hell? And you just hear Gideon laughing in the background, like, and that's how you find out Gideon's the bad guy for season
8. Oh man. So yeah, I like I say, I think that having Cisco, like designating him as the leader in Barry's absence was like a good, you know, idea, but they just didn't do anything with it other than to just give Cisco something to do for an episode. So
and then he vanished for like 7 episodes.
Yeah. So then we actually get to Crisis, and I see this is my problem. We spend 9 episodes about how Barry's going to vanish in Crisis. And I said this to my wife. I said this to Beth. I was like, I know they're going to do this, but I really hope they don't. That's the whole reason they introduced Barry Allen of Earth 90 is they're going to be like, the article just says Barry Allen or the Flash disappears. It doesn't say which Flash disappears. Yuck, yuck. And that's what they did. It was such a cop-out, and it made me so mad because that's not what we've been. If you lay the groundwork for 6 years of your show that this is a thing that's going to happen, and then to just pull the rug out when you actually get there and don't even give it like an episode or 2 to actually happen and transition to Wally and, you know, do all that. I get that for John Wesley Shipp, this was a moment.
And it was a really good moment.
Kudos to him, you know, like, because he deserves it. You know, with all the work he's done in, all the love of the character and everything that he's done, he deserves to have a moment. But yeah, I was very frustrated that they did this cop out.
I mean, okay. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Ryan, because I got thoughts. Go.
Yeah.
I'm going to defend it a little bit. Not because I don't agree with you, Nathan. I do that it is a cop out, but it's worth looking at it in context that they moved Crisis up like by what, like 6 years or something, like 4 years or something.
Yeah, 4
years.
To the
point. Yeah. So it's not that they might not have planned on actually getting rid of Grant Gustin and assuming the show had gone on that long and replacing him with someone else. It's just that Crisis came, you know, before anyone was really ready, before the show, they were ready to take that development with Grant and pass it on to Wally or someone else altogether. They decided that they were going to do Crisis, and they'd written themselves into or painted themselves into a corner with this prophecy, which they now had to finish. So it would be kind of like if in this first season of Arrow they'd said that Crisis was going to come and Arrow died, which he did, but they moved it up. So I guess I'm kind of all over the place on this one because I do get your annoyance with it because it is legitimate. It is a cop out, although Flash has done that from day one.
I know it's not new, but I thought with the importance that the newspaper has had in the storyline for years, that they would give it its not to mope about it happening for half a season and then not actually pay it off. You know, but
hello, Iris dying at the hands of Savitar. I mean, all they do.
Don't you dare!
But even then, that was only like 10 episodes of them obsessing about that. It wasn't 6 years. So, I don't know. But yeah, okay, your Savitar point is well made with Iris. Yeah. That was also a cop-out.
Yeah. Well.
And they totally had it out with that one, too, because they could have brought her back from the future, and it still would have worked. And it's like, oh. Instead, they went with no, we're just not going to pay it off at all. Okay. It was really Harry, or not Harry, HR.
Well, it just goes to the fact that I think they're afraid to, although they're going to have this problem with Batwoman, they're afraid to continue the shows without the principal, without the title lead. I think Arrow could have continued on with someone else, and I definitely think Flash could continue on with someone else. But they'll lose every other actor, but they won't lose the main one. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, and that's the sad thing, and that's the crazy thing, because DC is the company that built itself on the legacy idea of handing off to other characters. You know, Marvel's always had that problem of, you know, there may have been like 5 people or even more now, who knows, who've worn the Captain America suit, but it goes back to Steve pretty quickly. Like, it just slingshots back to him. Whereas, you know, DC has done like decades worth of stories with other people wearing mantles, you know, that used to be other characters. So, I mean, like, I think the TV universe could learn a lot from that and allowing that sort of thing to happen, that sort of natural progression.
I couldn't resist because I have been watching Stargirl. Stargirl's doing it. The Legacy.
Yeah, I've been waiting to watch Stargirl until I can watch the uncut ones on DC Universe. You know, I'm going to like binge like the whole thing once it's down.
I think you really like it, Nathan.
Yeah, but I don't want to watch the edited ones on CW. So.
Oh no, I've been watching the ones on the network.
Yeah.
I know for a fact Sean will love it when he gets to sit down and watch it.
Yeah, it's literally on my list right now. Harley Quinn, the cartoon, has been obsessed. I've been obsessing over it now. It's so good. But that is not what we're talking about today.
Right.
No, I was just throwing that out there. When it comes to the legacy stuff, Stargirl's doing it.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have a lot of, I'm just like Ryan on this one. I have a lot of mixed emotions because of the fact that you're right. When they started the show, it was clear that the way they were presenting this idea was that if they got to 10 seasons of The Flash, that they could do a series finale and have Barry die. And then they could do basically a follow-up. They could have, you know, Kid Flash become the new Flash, whatever, you know, Flash the you know, the next what would it be, like the next lap, you know, or something like that, you know, with Wally, whatever. And that was a really powerful like mission statement, and to not pay that off by, you know, doing a wink and a nod saying, well, we didn't say Barry was going to die, wink wink, was really a cop-out, because some of the most important parts of the DC narrative have been the loss of characters and the loss of Barry Allen. For those of you, I think most of you guys know me from, you know, privately, you know, my thoughts on Barry Allen, and I've said this many times publicly, the best thing Barry Allen has ever done for the history of comic books was die. And that's not because he was a bad character. It's because his death was so monumental. It shook every character that knew him. It became the impetus in which Wally West measured himself against his mentor for the rest of his running his span as the Flash, to the point where he was like, I can never be as good as my mentor. And then eventually he realizes that he actually has surpassed his mentor. And it was a really great teaching moment, I thought. You know, Superman was the first person to say, you know, people always consider me to be like, you know, the heart and soul of the Justice League. He's like, but I'm not. It was the Flash, you know. And Barry is the person who has always, you know, presented hope. And when you kill hope, you know, that shakes people. So the fact that they were declaring this in the show, we're going to kill Barry Allen, like it's his face on the damn freaking newspaper. Right. And they say he's never seen again after that. You know, Nora grows up without a father. So this isn't we didn't say Barry was going to die. Bitch, you said Barry was going to die. You know, I mean, it was clear that it was going to be Barry. It's a false you know, lead. But that said, I do appreciate the fact that they gave us closure on Barry from Earth 90. One of the worst things that they ever did, and even CBS has said that, you know, if they could go back and change it, they would go and they'd bring back the Flash when they were originally airing it. But losing that version of the Flash was really heartbreaking for me as a kid. I loved watching that show, and I always would imagine what would future seasons be like. And to see if even it was only a moment, Tina, which was Barry's wife in the 90s version, dies at some point. And, the Barry that we meet, the older Barry, old man Flash, basically, is still mourning his wife. And so that moment where he's about to go into the Speed Force and just basically turn into energy, and he's going as fast as he can. And they have that flashback, and they just show young John Wesley Shipp and young Tina McGee, and you just have that moment. And and then he just goes, and I'm like, that's my Flash, like that's the first actor I ever saw play the Flash finish his role as the Flash. And that was a far greater ending for me emotionally as a viewer, because I never had that from the TV show. The TV show, it just there was nothing else. So there's a part of me that really likes that I got to get that closure for the character. But damn it, when you promise you're going to kill off your main character, you kill off your main character. Like, come on.
Well, yeah, because I'm thinking about how many people who watched The Flash, though, weren't old enough even to remember the John Wesley show. So, I mean, for them, that moment was meaningless. And even I, who watched the show a little bit, like I never watched it religiously, but I saw some of the episodes. I remember the Flash show from when I was a kid. Like, it doesn't really have that huge. I find him far more compelling as Jay Garrick, as the elder statesman in the Flash, when he shows up and he stands tall with that suit and
with
everything.
The helmet,
like,
yeah.
I'm always like, man, he just like seems like so regal. Like he's got this great presence as Jay. In the sort of spandexy Flash suit. From the 90s show, it doesn't give me that same feeling. It's just kind of like, oh, okay, same guy, but
yeah.
So I didn't have that emotional moment from watching him go.
Yeah, and again, I know that for me, that's much more of a and I've talked about this a long time. I've been a fan of the Flash since 1985. So I realize 7-year-old Sean, there's a huge part of my brain that's just globbed onto these characters, and I will love each iteration of those characters. So seeing them do a callback like that was really good. But from a writer point of view, okay, Sean's now going to take this to task for not, delivering on their promise. I feel like it really, let me back up a second. This season promised to be the season of Crisis on Infinite Earths.
Mm-hmm.
Crisis on Infinite Earths is about how worlds will live, worlds will die, and at the end, nothing will be the same. If the Flash was the marquee tool that was going to take up the mantle as being the flagship show after Arrow ends, and worlds lived, worlds died, and yeah, nothing is really the same, but that nothing would be the same is some of your characters are gone. Ollie's gone. Ollie's, off being the Spectre somewhere right now. Like, he'll come back and do cameos from time to time, but losing Barry Allen for like 6 episodes, something like really make it feel like he's not coming back, or the whole second half of the season, like, just, I don't know. They could have done something. Now, that doesn't mean I want to see Grant Gustin out of a job. Right. I like him as the Flash a lot, but I think if somebody sat down and said, look, you're going to get paid your full rate for the season, but you have no more work after Crisis. And we're going to hold you into contract, and you will be coming back, but it's going to be a surprise. But as far as everybody's concerned, you're done and you're looking for a job. And they actually played that. Imagine how huge the beginning of season 7, like 4 or 5 episodes in, right? Everybody's finally moving on with their life, and then there's a crack of thunder, and all of a sudden Wally reaches into the Speed Force and, pulls Barry out or something, whatever. They could have done something really special there, and they just let it lapse.
Yeah, I mean, that was my point too. I never expected them to get rid of him permanently, but pay it off. I mean, do something where he's gone for a while, and even if you felt like, okay, well, we're going to bring him back, we're not even going to let me go on a whole season, but like maybe just most of the season, then maybe in the finale, that's the big deal, is Barry come back. Whatever, pay it off.
Right. Don't
just like be like, yeah, we can hand wave it away. Not a big deal.
Yeah, and honestly, that's probably the problem with and this is me, calling shenanigans on my own show here, which is that the Flash too frequently does the aha moment where they think they're being clever, and all they're really doing is kind of insulting us.
Yeah.
And I don't like that. When I look at something like, perfect example, when you look at coming up with really clever twists that then make you go back and go, oh, I see what they did there. Go look at Legends. Legends continually finds ways of saying, this is the show, this is what you're looking at. And then like 3/4 of the way through, they go, aha, but it works. And I think it's because they keep trying to make the Flash like Batman, you know, or something. Like stop making him dark. Like I would have loved for this season to have been the first 9 episodes to have been Barry kind of like, you know, this is happening and we're going to make the best of our time with it. And we're going to keep on doing the fight. We're going to keep on working it. And, you know, and they go back and they get, you know, Kinlan Lonsdale, they bring him back and they say, you know, hey, we want you to come back for a little while. And he's teaching him what's going to happen. And then of course, crisis occurs. And you have this moment where like it feels like it's moving on, and then of course you bring him back, and it's like, oh my god, he survived, blah, and that opens up a whole host of opportunities in the future. But instead, they made it mopey and they made it sad.
Well, and even though it got better after Crisis, we have the, oh, by the way, I killed the Speed Force.
Oh my god.
So now we're going to build our own Speed Force with blackjack and hookers.
So can we talk about why they're doing this self-created Speed Force BS?
Why are they? Because I couldn't figure it out. I'm like, this is so dumb. It's like we're going to get some gum and some matchsticks and we're going to put together our own Speed Force.
This is actually all a result of Jeff Johns about 10, 12 years ago writing one stupid line about the Speed Force, and it is now canon, and they're trying to figure out a way to work it into the show. And it is this: the Speed Force did not exist before Barry Allen was struck by lightning. Because he was struck by lightning, he started to gain super speed, and as he ran, he created the Speed Force. And whenever he runs, he's actually creating the Speed Force in the present, in the past, and in the future. So everybody who will ever use the Speed Force is tapping into the original event of his creation of becoming the Flash. So he is the penultimate Flash, because the Speed Force moves throughout time. So they're trying to make a new Speed Force that is generated by Barry. And I'm sorry, that's stupid. It was stupid when Jeff Johns wrote it. It's stupid now, and it's going to be stupid in the future whenever Jeff Johns realizes it was stupid. All right?
It's not linear.
It's not right. Seriously, do I got to get Cisco on your butt here? Like, come on, man. Like Cisco from the DS9 for those of you who may not know. Not Cisco for the show. But what the hell, man? Like, come on. I mean, like, am I the only one here who thinks that the self-perpetuating Barry Speed Force that is in the comics right now is like stupid?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's supposed to be like some cosmic thing that's always like been like what momentum comes from the Speed Force.
Yes.
That was the whole thing that like Savitar was talking about. That was like it's like it's this timeless force. Why does it have to be tied to Barry?
Right.
Specifically.
So when they did the original Speed Force, it was supernatural, right? It was a supernatural force. It existed outside of itself, but they screwed that up. It was supposed to be Speedster Valhalla, and basically they made it into Pinhead's next door neighbor, you know, so that way if you go to the Speed Force, you're going to have chains ripping through your body for the rest of the time, and there's going to be Sam and Dean over there from Supernatural going, Dean, Sam, we're in hell. I don't know what the crap is going on with them. I don't know why an afterlife on the CW can't be remotely pleasant, you know, but regardless, you know, they wrote it as supernatural. You know, and they had this thing, and then they Mark Waid, when he invented it basically for the Flash, it was a supernatural Valhalla. But as soon as they introduced the idea that it's generated by Barry, they screw up all the Speed Force. Like if you've read the comics where Barry goes into the Speed Force after they come up with that idea that it comes from him, it's like, you know what it's like? It's like Land of the Lost.
Yeah.
And if you've not read these issues, I'm sure Eric has.
Yep.
Yeah, but I mean, seriously, it's like there are people who have been lost in the Speed Force by accident, and like they're fighting dinosaurs and crap, and like they consider the Speed Force to be hell. And I'm like, this is wrong. Like I read it and it pisses me off. And then they forget about it.
So
Please.
what does that say? If the Speed Force was, you know, accidentally or not created by Barry, then it's a reflection of his subconscious. So is he the one making it hell for everyone?
Maybe. I just. Oh God, he pisses me off is what it does. You know, how do you that's like turning back around, and you know what it is? You know what this is? This is the Flash equivalent of Martha.
Yeah, oh God. So it's like you know, they try to like pull at the heartstrings with Barry going there, and it's his old room from when he was a kid, and it looks like the Speed Force looks like his mom, and she's dying, and he's gonna watch her die again. But I'm just like, I mean, this is like a storyline that didn't even need to happen.
Nope.
You know, like it doesn't actually do anything for the character other than that if you want to establish, well, this is why the villains are like kind of like doing a little bit better now is because he can't run as fast, or he's got to like wait to run to when he absolutely needs to because he's trying to save his power or whatever. But like, oh, there were other ways you could have done that without saying, you could say like he's cut off from the Speed Force for a while or something, like anything, you know, other than we killed the Speed Force and now we've got to put together. We're going to call MacGyver and he's going to get some bubble gum and some stuff.
We're going to get the professor on the island. He's going to get some coconuts together. And,
right.
You know, and I mean, and then of course they bring in my boy Wally. They bring in Kinlan Lonsdale, and he comes in and he just berates Barry just up and down the street. Okay. He's like, "You stupid son of a bitch!" Like, I mean, just. Like just
part. Okay, all right. I'm gonna switch gears now. But the best part about bringing Wally back this season was that, you know, the rest of us are all going like, you know, why can't Barry tell that, you know, Mirror Iris, or Siri as Beth and I call her, because Iris backwards is Siri.
Oh, okay.
So Siri is not like actually Iris, and then Wally's just there for 5 minutes and he's like, "That's not Iris. You guys better watch her." You know, it's just like. Wally comes in and he barely even knows, like he was like with her for like a year and some change or whatever, living, you know, and it's like he can tell, but Barry, who grew up with her, he can't tell the difference.
It's because she was suddenly interesting.
Right. Well, that's the thing. That's the thing I said to Beth. I was like, you know, I don't know what they're doing right now with Iris, but man, this is so much of a better character.
Yeah, I mean, like, you know, it's funny. My wife, she hates Iris because that first season, basically, Iris is dead to Laura because of that first season. She's like, no, that character is dead to me. Yeah. She's like, that woman was horrible in the first season. And I was like, well, no, I mean, Candace Patton is a good actress. She's like, no, the woman's fine. The character Iris is dead to me. Mm-hmm. And so this season, Laura was actually like, yes, kill Iris. Like, so it was very cathartic for her to kind of see Iris become a bad guy. So or Siri, as you call her. So that worked out nicely. But yeah, I mean, it certainly gave Candace Patton something to do other than just be like, yay, Barry. Mm-hmm. And it's because I think that they don't, like, I don't know why people won't just say, hey, you know what? There's a really great reporter out there that we can all emulate, and just everybody go look at Margot Kidder, you know, doing her performance of Lois Lane and saying, go be Lois Lane. You know, your name is Iris West, you know, Alan, but, you know, go do your best Lois Lane impression. And that's okay. I mean, we need more badass female reporters on these shows that are actually like going after their, like, when's the last time we actually saw like Iris really go after a story? I mean, she goes after this whole thing at McCullough Enterprises, but it's more Snoopy and more like, you know, private detective-y. Like, you know, why isn't she like putting herself out? Like, you know, I just wish there was something I wish it was away from Central City, or at the very least more on the front lines of things that didn't necessarily tie into the grander plot. I would love to see her being just a much more active, much more go get it reporter. And I feel like they want to say she's a great reporter, but they don't know how to write her as a great reporter.
Well, the thing is, to your point about Candace Patton, when she was Siri, that's when I actually got like, this is why she was cast in the part. Like when she's in the bar and she's like, you know, like taking no guff from anyone and busting heads. I'm like, this is good. I like this. I mean, I realize it's going to turn out she's some like evil, like duplicate thing, but like for right now, I think she's interesting. This is cool. I want more of that.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, it's just a problem. Like, it's just how she's been written.
Yeah, it really is a problem of how they wrote her. And that's really the issue I have with all my complaints. Really comes down to the writing room. It feels like they knew where they wanted to end the story, they knew where they wanted to begin the story, and then they just kind of put it around and they didn't really focus on it. And I think that that's part of the problem with doing these half seasons and having this big momentous crossover event that happens basically in the winter that they've really kind of come to rely on. Is it feels almost like the back half of your season now can sometimes just be a letdown unless you do something really special. I mean, honestly, I think Legends has figured it out. We don't have episodes prior to the crossover. You know, like we show up after the crossover. Our whole season is post crossover, whatever it's going to be.
Well, I think this is why they're also decided that this coming year, and even before COVID-19 took off, they were saying we're not going to do another big crossover next year. We're going to have a little one between Batwoman and Superman and Lois, but we're not going to do like a huge, like every show crossover, because it's like at some point the escalation gets too difficult. Like, oh, now we got to come up with something bigger than Crisis. And I'm so glad, because I was worried, oh God, are they going to do Identity Crisis?
No. The next one would be 0 Hour. The next one would be 0 Hour.
I know, but I keep worrying about Identity Crisis showing up soon. And so
but you know what though?
But you just met Sue. Let her live.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, but seriously though, I mean, to be fair though, Nathan, I mean, even though we don't want to see that happen to Sue, I mean, that was one of the real like big landmark with DC books that got you interested in reading a lot more DC.
That's true. No, it was well written. It was well written.
But we don't want to see Sue go down like that.
No, and it's just like they're rushing too much. Like we said before, like Wally, if they had just waited a few years, would have been, so much more impactful. Yeah. And they could have had more of the dynamic between Barry and Wally. And maybe they could have had Wally stick around more if it had had more of that. Because I kind of get why Keenan Lionsdale wasn't like, hey, I want to keep doing it. Like the part that Wally had wasn't really that great.
Yeah, and then he went over and tried it on the Legends, and it was like, yeah, it's still not working. Like he was like, I'm out. Like,
yeah.
But it's funny because it's like they have the showrunners have this dual competing ideas where they think the show's going to get canceled every year, so they've got to throw everything in from having Kid Flash in season 1, Wally in season 1, to we're going to be around for 10 years, so we'll put Crisis off 10 years from now. I mean, either plan long term or not, but don't. Every time they throw everything in one season, it only ends up hurting themselves.
Yeah, and I mean, to be fair though, I mean, if you've been looking at the Flash's ratings, it's one of CW's top rated shows. I mean, it's not going anywhere. Like they're going to milk this puppy until basically Grant Gustin's like, I'm going to take a break.
Right.
Like it'll be Grant Gustin leaving. Even then, they're going to probably go and find somebody else. So bring back Nora.
When Grant Gustin is the age of John Wesley Shipp is now.
Right.
It's like it flashes in season like 45 or something.
Right. But you know what? And honestly, it does feel like that. It feels like Grant Gustin had enough of a career prior to the Flash. He knows how hard it is to have a job that's going to pay you this well and be this, stable. He's like, I'm not getting off this train. And same thing with the what's her name, Danielle Panabaker. Her career like completely flatlined in the 2000s. The last big thing that she did prior to Flash was basically Sky High. Where she was the Poison Ivy clone, and it's like she knows how difficult it is to keep a career going. And she's moving into directing and stuff like that now. Because what she did, one or two episodes this season.
Well, I don't remember how many, but I know she's doing them. Yeah, she's doing directing.
So it's like, but so the actors who have been down that road, they know that if a show is doing well and they're paying you good money and they want you to keep you around, you don't piss off that gravy train. Which is why I'm interested in what's happening with that Brandon Routh thing. Now you guys got I want to go like do some snooping, but I don't know anybody close to Brandon, so I can't.
I would be interested if you find out anything, because I really want to know what's going on there, because I mean, he's one of my favorite characters.
Yeah, dude. Yeah.
And so when he was kind of just written out and it was clear he didn't want to be, I was kind of like, man, why'd you do him wrong?
My instinct on that matter is just that he's been on the show since the beginning. Contracts were up, and I know he's the most expensive one of that entire cast. So it was just a money issue. I mean, Legends is not. Flash might be getting decent ratings, but Legends is on the bubble every season. So
because I mean, he came in having had a movie career, and he was on Arrow for a while, and then moved over to Legends. Has been on since the beginning. So you're right. He probably is the highest paid, or was the highest paid of anybody on that cast.
Yeah, I think that's probably fair. I mean, really, the only other people who have probably been around as long as that, as far as that's concerned, was you'd have to go look at Rory, like Heatwave, or
and Sarah.
Or Sarah, I mean, really, because they have careers that extended past Legends. I mean, you could make an argument for Constantine, but he just kind of slowly rolled in, and he got canceled so many years ago. So he's had a hard time. I think he's just happy that he's back on the show. I think he's just so happy, like, I get to beat Constantine again. So, but going back to Candace Patton though, I really feel like Iris has been the weakest link of the show since the very beginning, because they kept toying with what they wanted to do with her instead of just like committing to it. And you can see the results of it are you have waffling seasons of I don't know. And when they get her right, it's perfect. Like she's firing on all points. And again, that points towards the actress is just waiting for the content to be there. And at least you could say, man, when they made her into a bad guy, she just ran with it. She just started tearing it up. You're like, uh-oh, this is it. When she started basically becoming a Cylon with victory as assured, I was like, oh, Cylons, we're screwed.
Yeah. I was definitely getting some Battlestar vibes from how they're doing that.
It was totally a thing. But yeah, I really like Candice Patton as an actress. I just feel like, unfortunately, they keep waffling on what they want to do. And I think that's because when you have so many main characters on a show and you don't clearly define how they're going to be, I really feel that that's going to be a problem. I quite honestly believe that if they ever hear this, but if the writers really want to know how to write Iris should almost never interact with Team Flash. Iris is there for Barry. Otherwise, her life is completely independent of Team Flash. She's out hunting down stories. She's out, cracking on, political scandals. She's out, talking to, domestic terrorists. That's what she's doing. And her storylines can intersect from time to time, but she's much more of an independent agent as far as narratively than the rest of the team. And I think that's the problem, is they keep trying to write her into being part of the team, and it makes her feel like a third wheel or a fifth wheel when she's the star of her own little mini series that happens on the Flash. Like 10 minutes a week we get like a cool little Iris story.
Well, they screwed the pooch by making her effectively Barry's sister. So like basically her dad, she's around Team Flash because her dad's always with Team Flash because that's effectively Barry's dad now. And like all that stuff. I mean, it's like they're so interconnected that it's kind of hard to separate her out, because like all of her, her brother is sometimes part of Team Flash. Her father is part of Team. It's like her whole life is there. It's
Speaking of her dad, can we talk about the fact they finally brought like the real Joe West back?
Yeah,
like Papa Joe showed up again.
Right. Yeah,
I miss Papa Joe.
Well, I mean, I guess it's been a long road to recovery since his accident, because after he had his accident last year, like he was almost like gone.
Yeah.
And you could tell that any cameos he had, like any scenes, it was like he's in a very still position where, they made sure he was very comfortable and could just sort of say something and then like transition out, to something else. And yeah, it was good to have Joe back, doing more, even though they also then written him out for a while.
Also like he also didn't get his like Papa Joe like speeches. Like he wasn't like the emotional touchstone for like the last 2 or 3 seasons. Basically since the end of season 4, prior to his accident, he stopped having like those really great pop moments where like you get like these amazing kind of like just dad moments with him. And what I loved
Cecile started giving them, which felt really weird, because it's like you don't know these people. You're like a stranger. You've only known them for a few months.
Yeah, the stepmom is coming in giving the advice, right? Yeah,
well, but I mean, I think making Joe captain kind of got us back there. I don't know why, but it put him in that position he was to let the father in him come out for everyone in the entire show.
Yeah, he stopped being the necessary front line of the police force, and he became, the administrator, which allowed him to become the dad, which is nice. I think that worked really well. So, but I loved seeing old school Jesse Martin back, just giving some great speeches, talking truth to people, really just, there's even that great moment where everybody thinks Barry's insane, and everybody's like, I think Barry's jumped off the deep end. And Joe's kind of like, well, let me talk to him, and like you have those moments, where it's like he sees through the BS. And I love the fact that they finally started bringing some of that true, amazing, just dad love back into the show, because I felt like we lost it for a little while. And obviously his accident, his injury, they just put him in a Barca lounger for a season, right? And just, when I was a kid, that would just be weird,
Oh man. So yeah, we didn't hear from you guys, Ryan and Eric, about the whole Siri thing and how you thought. I mean, the thing I kept saying is, it's like, this is going to be really awkward when Iris comes back and he's like, yeah, I slept with this other woman for like 3 months, but honestly, I couldn't tell the difference. It's like, how do you do this? How do you convince your wife that, you can, and that in itself is a problem, that you couldn't tell the difference. But anyway. Oh man, Ryan, so yeah, what do you think about the whole, like, what they've been doing with Iris, or what they've been doing with Joe?
I think we all agree that Siri is better written and more compelling and more interesting than Iris. I do think on the point that Sean's been making and everyone's kind of agreed is that Iris's title as Central City's leading journalist, it doesn't feel earned.
Yeah.
Up until she became Siri, it doesn't feel like she'd gotten it legitimately. And they could have spent all this time. They could have built her up as a journalist the same way they built Barry up as a hero, but they didn't. It's just suddenly, her blog turns into the most followed website in all of Central City, through magic and compelling Amazon links, I guess. I don't know. But
I'm sorry, I had a flashback to the Once Upon a Time thing where you do one episode of a podcast and suddenly New York people are calling you up and wanting to pay you to do your show.
Yeah. Exactly.
Right. That's how it happens.
It's all in the shares.
Right, exactly.
So keep that phone handy, Nathan.
Right, that's right. All right.
But the thing, going on, honestly, the thing I thought was best about Iris/Siri and about the whole you don't know who you're sleeping with was the fact that for Barry, probably the biggest tell that this wasn't his wife was that she could cook.
Right.
Woman could burn cornflakes.
And I will admit, I laughed a lot at that. But I came out of it up until Siri went truly evil, and even then she was still not truly evil.
Mm-hmm.
But I came out of it hoping that they were going to do a third twist where this was actually the real Iris all along, or something like that, because I like this Iris.
Well, or in some way, like integrate them together or something, so they become one being again or something, and yeah.
Yeah, but I got to admit, I like the idea of her not being a part of Team Barry, but not being a part of Team Flash.
Yeah,
I think that makes so much sense.
Yeah.
What would definitely allow her to have like that sort of like when she does show up to make it feel like there's a reason, because she's done all this stuff on her own and she didn't need them, and so she's bringing something to the table now.
And I will say her interactions with Cecile and Camilla and Allegra, I like all those. I just feel like they're not even the B, they're the C story in the show. I would be fine following that if we hadn't pushed everything else to the side.
Yeah. Eric, what do you think about Iris Siri?
Everybody else is pretty much already covered.
It's fine. I just wanted to see if you had any other comments to add on that, because now I want to take the time. I really want to take the time to talk about the greatest development of that season. And by that, I, of course, am referring to Sue.
Well, in that case, let me pull the Sean. My time.
I'm just going to say, and my wife can never hear this, but I'm in love. Anyway, Eric.
So when it comes to Sue as a character, especially comic book Sue, and I come into this from the surprisingly post-Identity Crisis, even though obviously I went back and read as many Sue and Ralph appearances as I could, but I was the when it came to the ghost detectives, or the flashbacks and just hearing about Sue through Ralph and the others, Sue's the kind of character that has to be able to captivate the room, but stand up to like the Supermans and like the most powerful character in the room and not bat an eye. And they had to nail that with the casting, and they did. Everything about the Sue is fantastic, and it's funny because that first real like solo Ralph and Barry adventure of the season, which I thought was one of the stronger episodes of the season.
Oh, that's true. For the first half, I think that was easily the best episode.
I thought that the woman that we met like 2 or 3 times throughout the episode, I thought for sure she was going to be revealed as Sue, just because of how they were playing it. But then, we finally do meet Sue in this. Everything about this actress, she is fantastic. I can see her walking right up to Soups and being like, "Hey, Blue, what's up?"
Yeah, well, here's the great thing. Not only is she all the things we said Iris should be, independent, strong, able to stand up against these superpowered individuals and not bat an eye, all this great stuff, she also has this amazing chemistry with Ralph.
Yep.
They because that was the other essential element, is you had to buy these two as a romantic couple. And man, did they nail like the chemistry off the two of them. Like when Sean says they should have a spin-off show, yeah, like why not? Because those two could easily do a show, and I would love every minute, because when those two are on the screen together, you don't want to look at anything else that's going on. There is so much going on. They are so good together. She's great just by herself, but with Ralph also, it's amazing. And I have just been floored by it. And the fact that we've only really had 3 episodes of the two of them now is just like, I'm like, no, I want more. Like, you introduce Sue, then you give me a whole bunch of episodes that don't have Sue or Ralph.
If they're not actually dating, they are 10 times the actors that they're given credit for, if they're not really dating, off screen.
Well, yeah, I mean,
that's how good they are.
Yeah, no, I mean, you're right. They sell it. That's true chemistry there. So Sean, as another longtime fan of DC, what do you think about Sue?
Okay, I think we can all agree that we've all fallen in love with Natalie Dreyfus, the actress. Yes. Dear Lord, oh my God. Like, honestly, this is for me, like, just the actress kind of like sparks the same kind of sense memory that I remember at the final season of How I Met Your Mother, where it's like they really nailed the mom, even though they completely pooched that season as far as like, all the crap they did to her. Like, the actress, I was like, I will follow that chick to other shows now. It's always fun when I find her another show. I'm like, oh, that's great. Natalie Dreyfus will be one of those ladies that I will follow to other shows just to see what interesting thing is going to happen. And I love that because, I love finding actresses and actors that I really want to follow around and see what kind of crazy stuff they're going to, do after a project finishes. And that's a really kind of fun thing. But yeah, I mean, the way they wrote this character, I mean, even my wife, Laura, she was like, okay, she's really cute. And I'm like, right. But the thing that we've all kind of touched on is the fact that, she has to have the ability to stand up to Soups, but she also has to have eyes only for Ralph. And that's the thing, when you're in a room with because they always describe Sue as being like the most gorgeous woman in the room, right? And they always talk about the fact that she's a socialite and how she rubs elbows with gods and goddesses and billionaires. But the person that she always wants to go home with every night is the elongated man. And that means, just like you guys have said, they got to nail that chemistry. And it's so apparent. I mean, like, these cats, like, as soon as it started, I thought one of the great moments was when Camille came up and she's like, whatever you're feeling, she's feeling it too. And he's like, well, what are you talking about? And she's like, and like, that was such a great moment because she's like, it's all over her. And I have no idea what you're talking about, And I love that they're both in denial about it right now.
Well, yeah, she's like, basically, you are the two most compatible people that I have ever met.
Right. And I love that. I love the fact that the show is just telegraphing, this. It's weird, though, because they keep using Sue's last name, as Dearbon. And I'm like, wait, no, her last name's Dibney. And I'm like, oh, wait, she's not married yet. And it screws with me because, she's always been Sue Dibney to me, so it's like whenever I hear her real last name or her maiden name, I'm just like, the hell, but I love that. And I like the fact that instead of just making her and I don't want to, downplay anybody's like of the comic character, but just making her a plain Jane socialite that marries into the Justice League, basically. I like the fact that there actually is this whole subplot of the fact that she's sneaky and she's got her own motivations, and apparently she went to the Tom Cruise school of Mission Impossible face mask ripping off, and, which, by the way, guys, if you're talking about that first episode with the solo elongated man Flash episode at the beginning of the season, it could have been Sue. She could have had a mask on the whole time. You don't know.
True.
That's true.
It's true.
So, but I mean, that's the kind of stuff that I think is really interesting about this version of Sue, is that she's not just because I was really kind of like afraid that it was just going to be a helpless socialite kind of situation. I've been kidnapped, blah blah, and it's like, no, she's not a damsel in distress. She's going to be an equal, which is how, of course, their relationship is once they get together. But even though technically in their first encounter in the comics, he did save her. But again, when Superman was there and Green Arrow was there, she was fascinated with the guy that could stretch himself 100 yards and stuff. And I love that about the character. So I feel that from all the interviews I've heard from the actress, they're locking her down for a while. Which means A, that we're going to be seeing a lot more of Sue. B, we're going to be seeing a lot more of Ralph. And C, if it goes well, who knows? We might actually get them on their own show, which I think would be free. Or at least they'll move them to another show. Like if Flash decides to end up its run, maybe, Ralph and Sue jump over to Legends or something else, At this point, I'm waiting for them to just announce the Justice League TV show. Now that we have the freaking Hall.
I know.
Like, I'm kind of waiting for that to happen. So.
Wonder Twins 2021.
I don't know if my heart can take that, man. I just don't know. I can deal with a lot, but I don't know if I can deal with the Wonder Twins in real life.
Hey, we know Gleek's there.
Gleek is one thing. The Wonder Twins, I just don't know if I can deal with it.
but
my
yeah,
my headcanon is Sue trained with Ted Grant. She totally trained with Wildcat. You can't tell me differently.
Oh, that'd be cool.
Yeah,
or
that would
also,
be a nice
and
connection.
if you could explain the mask with maybe she also trained with the Question.
Oh, that would be awesome.
Yeah.
But yeah, the thing that I really like about their relationship is even when she's being snarky and everything, she never downplays who he is as a hero.
No.
Like she never makes fun of that aspect. Like, because with your powers being stretchy, there's a lot of humor that you could get and you could sort of make fun of somebody. She never goes there. She might downplay like his competence as like a cop or detective or whatever sometimes and be like, because they're gonna make fun of him. But as a hero, she's always like respectful of that's what he does, and that's and that he brings something to the table there. So I like that part of it. So Ryan, thoughts on Sue?
Well, being the only one here who hasn't read the comics with her, or at least not extensively, I probably came into it with the least expectations and was not disappointed. They have a kind of a hit or miss record with casting in these shows. Sometimes it works, or sometimes the chemistry will be between two characters which never should have been, like Felicity and
Ollie.
Ollie. Yeah. And but this, they did it twice. They lightning struck twice here. First with casting Ralph, and then casting Sue. And either one of the, if they gotten Ralph wrong, we would have seen him last season and then never again, and the same here. They did it, and they did it right. And I think if they were to get their own show or an episode, I fully expect next season for there to be an episode of theirs within the Flash. It'll just be those two, on their own adventure. But what I'm kind of thinking of, or the vibe that I get, without Cisco, is moonlighting, but with powers, right? Between the two of them. I mean, without that whole, with the sexual tension, but not the type that's going to ruin the show once it's acted upon. No, I just feel like there's something enduring here, something which Grant Gustin and Candice Patton have not been able to capture, no matter how hard they've tried. And these two have gotten it in a matter of 2 or 3 episodes.
Well, from the beginning, like from the very first time they were on screen together, it was apparent. I mean, and it's not losing anything by having a couple more. But it's amazing. And I like every time that Ralph is gone, I'm always like, God, there was no Ralph in this episode. And now I'm going to feel like the more those two are together, the more I'm going to want them be in the show, which is a problem when the show is called The Flash, which is why Sean's idea of spinning them off is going to be, is I think a good one, because I could easily see them overshadow the Flash within his own show, which is not
definitely.
It's not a good thing. So now we have sort of post-crisis world. I'm not the happiest with how they've done it, just because like the idea of, okay, now everybody's together, we don't have to hop universes to see Supergirl. Okay, that's fine.
I really like that, actually. Yeah.
Yeah. But the whole thing of somehow Jean was able to restore the memories of people who he never even knew, so how does he restore their memories? But then they don't remember the different version, the post-crisis version is kind of like, oh, so we don't know anything about this new world, and we're just running around, like kind of confused, and I don't know if I care about that. I would have liked it that if just the 7 Paragons remembered and nobody else remembered like what All Crisis was about. And then that way, just the Paragons have to adjust to the new status quo, and everybody else is kind of like, this is the way it's always been, instead of this kind of like, hey, these people are villains now, they weren't before, this person isn't, or what. I mean, I don't know. How do you guys feel like they're handling the whole post-crisis-ness?
Well,
So, I mean, I think the best one, and they're inconsistent too, because Green Arrow and the Canaries, for the backdoor pilot they had it where they had both sets of memories, and even that I think would have worked better than this whole sort of thing where they're like, we have to like start mapping out the timeline of the new world and stuff because we don't know any of this.
They kind of did that whole where only the Paragons remember with Flashpoint, right? I mean, Barry came back and he was the only one who knew the differences, and so maybe they're just kind of afraid of just recycling that storyline again.
Yeah,
and
that was my thought too.
I have an issue with how it's handled with some people, like Grodd has 2 sets of memories and knows both worlds, but then you get to poor Hartley and it's like, look at the crap that Hartley had to put up with.
Well, and they're inconsistent even there, because they said that like vibing doesn't even work post-crisis because there's only one universe, and so he can't vibe, but Hartley remembers Cisco as vibe, so it's like, wait a minute, he's like, of course I knew it was you.
That, yeah, I think where they're saying vibing doesn't work anymore, I think they meant the cross jumping, because there's no reason why. I mean, to be fair, Vibe was vibing all kinds of different kind of vibes prior to jumping universes. The man was jumping from teleportation point to teleportation point, making sound waves. His power is not interdimensional. So,
well, they were saying that they couldn't even use those devices to teleport anymore because vibing doesn't work in the post-crisis universe, because you need the multiverse even to teleport within your own universe. Apparently, I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's inconsistent anyway.
Yes.
I've been kind of annoyed by it, and that's why I thought that, oh god, they're going to do 0 Hour next year to try to fix things. But they didn't do that either. They didn't, so I don't know.
But hey, if they do 0 Hour, that means that we're going to see Hawk from Titans actually become the bad guy from another universe come over, and that could be kind of cool, but that's a whole nother.
No, it's true. Well, maybe they might actually introduce a Green Lantern.
Well, apparently it's coming.
Maybe.
No, I mean that's being supposedly Berlanti's developing it for what was it, HBO? They said.
Oh well, yeah, but I mean, like as part of this, I mean, because just like the things on DC Universe don't ever cross over, I'm not sure a show on HBO is going to cross over with the CW shows.
You guys talking about Diggle's got a ring?
Yeah, that's what they're going to do. They're saying that Diggle is getting his own spinoff show, and it's going to be Green Lantern, and it'll be on HBO Max.
Although I heard it was going to be Green Lantern Corps, so I don't.
Well, yeah.
So he will be part of an ensemble of Green Lanterns.
But he'll be. I think he's going to be our Vector versus Hal Jordan. I think is what they're going for.
Well, apparently he might be on Superman and Lois for a little bit too.
Well, that was the thing that I thought, because he said something about moving. He said something about moving to Metropolis, and so I was like, "Oh, is he going to be like a supporting cast member on Superman and Lois?" So
learning how to use his ring with Superman's help.
How to use his ring. Yeah,
that'd be cool. I'd like that. And then he finally gets the call, because that's what happened in the comics. Is Hal did not immediately go to the Corps. He spent a while on Earth before he got the call up.
Yeah, because I can totally see David Ramsey being like, "This is like the best thing that's ever happened to my career. I do not want to go." It's like Steven wanted to go. I don't want to go. Keep me, guys. So
right.
Yeah.
No, I mean, honestly, they've been playing around with that idea that Diggle's going to become a Green Lantern for a while now. So I'm pretty sure that we're going to get a full blown. Like eventually, what's going to happen is that we're going to have him on Lois and Clark. He's going to learn how to be Green Lantern, and then they're going to launch him off when Green Lantern Corps is ready to go. Then he's going to leave the Lois and Clark show and take off to the next one.
Okay,
so,
yes. Yeah, I never read anything that said that he was going to be on the show on HBO. I thought that was
he's been
completely
hinting
separate.
it like heavily. He's been saying there's a plan. It will be happening. I can't talk about it yet, but they keep dropping big hints. And I mean, Eric and Ryan, I'm sure you've heard this too, but like it's all winking and nodding at this point.
Yeah. Plausible deniability.
Right.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
But that said, I will say that at least we got another Grodd episode.
Yeah, that's true.
It was a good one too. It was solid.
Yeah, we got.
Whenever I get my boy on a season of Flash, I'm happy. So no, I like this season's Grodd though. I thought that was an interesting take where for a moment Barry was stuck in Grodd's memories. He got to, considering everything that's happening right now with like the Black Lives Movement and whatnot, and having your hero locked in a cage and people won't listen to him, and it's like there was a very, very key moment there where it was just like that absolutely, I think when people come back and look at that episode later on and seeing somebody, quote unquote, as an animal, and he's like, no, I just want to go home. That I feel like that episode will become a far more appreciated episode as the years go on. It'll age really well, I think.
Well, definitely one of the good things that's come out of Crisis is that they've remade the universe in a way that all the interesting places still exist. So like we've got Gorilla City, on the Earth, and we've got Atlantis on this Earth, like it sounds like we've got like all the ingredients together to actually do like
it's finally DC
universe.
Yeah, it's finally DC. Oa's going to be there. The Mascara is going to be there. We're all in the same sandbox, basically. So,
yeah. And so then we have our new Mirror Master 2.0.
There's a lot of crap that happened in the season. Jeez, we haven't even got the Mirror Master yet.
Well, for being a short season,
seriously, right?
Well, only by 3 episodes, though. It's not like it was like a short season, like it's 13.
Well, no, but I mean, like I that was one of my comment notes that I wrote going into this conversation today. Was they put a lot into this season, and I had forgotten that thought until I was like, oh crap, we haven't even gotten to Mirror Master yet. Like, oh my god, like dear Lord.
Well, and she was a slow burn, though, to be fair. Like they did not just like up in front like, oh, Crisis is over, now is Mirror Master, a new Mirror Master. It was very much a build up reveal, and then sort of like even then she's in the shadows of the Mirror universe, just sort of directing things, and isn't really, and in fact it's really like when she comes out and makes her entrance, is that's all we got, and that was the last episode they had filmed. So
but it was a cool build. I mean, and I think what was really cool about that build was that you not only did you have that, but you also had the fact that you realize Mirror Master had been pulling a lot of strings, because all of a sudden Dr. Light becomes relevant again. Rainbow? Sunshine sounds right. What Sunshine, was that her name?
I think that's
comes back. Ultraviolet's there. All these characters that were just kind of like one-off rogues. All of a sudden, you have like this little mini team of an actual rogue team that's being led by the Mirror Master, and I'm like, okay, we have a rogues, we have a gallery, and I dug that. That was a really fun moment for me. And of course, he's Barry's fighting with only half of a speed force, basically. So that was just an interesting little thing to have all going on. But I thought the Mirror Master storyline really kind of sung along.
Yeah, I mean, I think it worked better just because they kept like pulling rugs out from under you, and it was a little bit more of a let's reveal what's happening. So like even when you knew something was up with Iris when she started speaking Italian, you didn't know exactly what was up with Iris yet,
right?
And things like that, where it was like they were slowly sort of building on this as well. And even then, when you meet Mirror Master, she's acting like she's a victim. And you don't know exactly what's going on. They just sort of slowly reveal it by showing the interactions and things that are going on, and so that made it a little more interesting, where you want to follow to the next episode just to see like, hey, I think I know what's going on, but is there something more here, and stuff like that, so yeah, I think that worked. I thought definitely a more interesting villain than Bloodwork. And like Ryan, I think it was Ryan who said that he was kind of hoping that Crisis would just sort of eliminate Bloodwork from the reality. But unfortunately, we see that he's in a cell somewhere, and made it sound like he had plans for, getting out of there. So I have a bad feeling that he's going to show up next season again.
Yeah. But look, I'm just saying, if he finally shows up completely covered in blood, just because in the comic, he's basically, he's just a psychopath that has blood, powers, so it's like, if they finally just make him a blood psychopath and he's just covered in blood and he's just ripping people up, and, he's like forgive the term, because he actually kind of looks like a Carnage. I think that would be just do that. Let's not make him into like a super heavy hero. Not every villain has to be deep. Sometimes they're just going to look cool, tear stuff up, and then get the crap kicked out of him by the hero.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that would have been better if they had just decided, like, this is a guy that, like, has these blood powers and he's just this crazy murderer. Like, does he turn people into zombies in the comics, or is that something they just made up?
I mean, honestly, he wasn't around long enough. If I remember correctly, his bloodborne pathogen that he used allowed him to draw blood out of people, and he could infect them and control them a little bit. But it was three issues. Like, there was not a lot there.
But just have him be out and out aggressor, or have him be like this guy that really wants to help people, but at a cost or whatever.
Right.
But one or the other, don't like halfway do it. Like, he's halfway, like, he infects people and turns them into mindless zombies, but also trying to say, like, oh, this is great and everybody should do it. I mean, I don't know. I just
give me Mirror Master.
Right, yeah.
Just give me Mirror Master.
So much less convoluted.
Yeah.
She wants revenge because her husband gave up on her in the Mirror Universe.
And I love that. I thought that her motivation was so clear cut, and it was so perfectly, like, framed, that it was like, okay, well, clearly they're going to stop it, you know? And I was like, oh, they didn't. Like, the fact that they actually let the rogue win. I think, quite honestly, not having those last 3 episodes for the season was a nice change of pace. You know, normally at the end of the seasons, you know, they usually tie everything up with a bow with but wait, there could be more, just in case they get renewed, right? Whereas this one, it's definitively, you don't know what's happening until they come back. They announced he's coming back in, like, January, I think.
January.
Yeah, so, you know, so until January, we have this big kind of like, what's going to happen? And I like that. It was different. And I like the fact that it gives a definitive win to the rogues, because that happens in the comics. The rogues do win sometimes. They do get away with it. And Mirror Master is one of the more mischievous and also more calculating of the rogues. And his plans are usually pretty complicated. So since they're transposing this to a female, you know, it's like, great, let's see what happens. And she just took it. What's her name? Eva, I think was her name, right?
Yeah, Ava. Yeah,
Ava. Yeah. So Ava was just like, she was just killing it, and I was like, do it. You know, I was rooting for it, because some of the craziest Mirror Master stories are, you know, they take you and they put you in a mirror universe. They call it Wonderland, and the world just kind of starts to fold in around you, and like you feel like you're going crazy because all of your friends who you think are on your side are actually these mirror duplicates, and that's how you find out you're actually not in the real world. So they kind of transpose that, and you have the mirror zombies, basically, you know, so you have the Siri and whatever Sing is backwards, you know, and you know, whatever. And I thought that was a really clever way of doing it. I was like, okay, I'm digging this. So I think, unless they just kill her out like they do every sequel freaking villain, as long as she doesn't just get wiped out early on in season 7, I think that she's going to make a really great long-term recurring bad guy that we can see.
Yeah, I think you're right, though, that of all the episodes we could have ended on, this was probably the best one, just because of the way that it did end. Like, it didn't feel like we were like I don't know if you saw Supergirl this season, but like the way Supergirl ends, it feels like okay, next episode, you know, kind of thing. Like, it feels like it was just kind of like, you know, not the right place to end it. Whereas this kind of felt like it was a moment, you know, that you can sort of like leave people on to be like, well, man, she won, so what are we going to do about that? So yeah,
you know, she won, but we survived, and now we know how to go get her, and we know what the stakes are, but we still don't have Iris. What happens next?
And Joe came back.
Oh, Joe came back. Yes. You know what? That honestly was their magic bullet. Joe coming back was like, okay, everything is right with the world again, right? Like, you know, actually, you know what the scene was? And I'm being dead serious. Nobody laugh at me for this one. It's at the end of Mighty Ducks 2, when everybody feels bad, and the old man shows up and he brings the new Mighty Ducks and the old Mighty Ducks together so they can win the Olympics. That was Joe. Joe was the old man bringing all the ducks together so they could win in the Olympics. That's what that was. And I stand by that. And if you have not seen that scene, go watch it. It's on Disney Plus, I'm sure.
So I think we've talked about just about everybody, except we didn't really talk about Danielle that much. I know you mentioned her a couple. Oh, actually, I haven't given everyone else time to talk about Mirror Master.
No, you didn't. I'm sorry. That was my bad.
Eric, yeah, like Eric, do you have anything to say about our new Mirror Master?
I don't know. I'm a huge fan of Mirror Master in general. Like, I really love the comic book version that was mostly throughout Jeff John's run, and obviously I like the Mark Waid stuff too. But I really like Zoot Suit Mirror Master. I don't know why. There's just something about that guy that was just fun. And I mean, I think this is a really unique take on the character. And like Sean was mentioning, like through the looking glass and that kind of stuff is interesting, and I do really like how they kind of had to leave the season off by kind of having her be the new big bad in this new status quo. But I don't know, there's just something about the actress that I feel like is lacking for a big like arch nemesis kind of deal.
I can kind of see that.
Yeah, I mean, she's playing it as if she's, lost some
The victim.
marbles. So, I mean, she's, she has to do that sort of crazy acting, on top of it. So it's going to be a little,
And if we're being fair, she hasn't gone full arch yet either.
Yeah,
that's true. Yeah.
She's been a lot of this. What's the actress name? She's got a weird name, like Efret or something like that. But yeah, okay. But she has a very kind of she's been playing the victim pretty much the whole season.
Mm-hmm.
Even when she finally succeeds in her master plan, it's of a victim. I mean, if you want to put it into regular human terms, it's basically a spousal abuse victim who finally has gotten her revenge on her abuser. She hasn't had a chance to truly become arch yet. So I think that hopefully, fingers crossed, what we get next season is the arching of this new Mirror Master, Mirror Mistress, whatever you want to refer to her as. I like Mirror Master 2 the way it's supposed to be, like in the comics. Just put a Roman numeral after that name.
Well, yeah. I mean, the interesting thing was that after she kills her husband and the Flash is there, she's like, "We're the same."
Yeah,
like that line, that was a great thing because it's like she's like, as far as she's like, I'm cleaning up the bad guys,
right.
Like I can keep doing this, and so she's basically becoming a vigilante type character, which again is going to, that's always a good type of character to have because then you have to like put that up against, well, Flash, every time you lock somebody up, they get out again, and hey, that whole Reverse Flash guy and what he do to your daughter, and you can bring all that stuff up, And so, because it appears that she has access to all of Iris's memories after Iris was duplicated. So she knows all the stuff about Team Flash. So it'll be interesting to have that sort of moral, that kind of discussion going on within the show. So, So Ryan, what do you think about Mirror Master 2?
Well, okay, I think this season I would have done better had I binged it all in one or two sittings as opposed to doing it a week by week thing, because honestly, the whole black hole conspiracy thing and all that, I was not into that. But the payoff was there when we got to the reveal and that, the true villain and so forth. So in that sense, looking back on it, I kind of feel like they brought it together, but they walked a fine line getting there to the point where I think they might have lost some viewers, or at least viewers like myself, who the back half of this season, more than any other part of the Flash, I found myself checking my phone a lot, just to see what else was going on in the world, or if it's my turn to play in Words with Friends or whatever. And until the last 2 or 3 episodes, and at that point I was in, because what they've done here, they built up a villain which probably more than any other Flash arch villain was understandable, right? This wasn't a villain that wanted to just be the fastest person alive, or control the Speed Force, or save humanity by destroying it, and this was a villain who, her husband was and she wanted revenge on him. And that's kind of like the most relatable villain that I think they've ever had in the CW.
Yeah. I'm really curious what they're going to do with this. And we, like I say, I think they're going to try to do whatever they were originally going to do. And so if she was going to be, killed or whatever at the end of the season, then that's probably what's going to happen. But I hope not. I hope she's open to appearing, later on in the season also, so that they can, do more with her, because like we've been talking about before now for the last couple of times we've done this show, it'd be nice to build up some rogues that they actually keep, instead of like every once in a while doing like, here's a new batch of rogues but then we don't see them again, because even the contortionist that they brought in last season, who was so creepy, Ragdoll, like he was really creepy. He was a new rogue, and then it's like, oh, we'll kill him off this season. It's just like,
but since we're talking Ragdoll, did you know that's Phil Lamar's voice?
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's Phil Lamar's voice. So apparently
that's awesome.
He's been part of the Arrowverse for a
long time.
Yeah. He's
an
just
actual
everywhere. He's John
contortionist,
Jones'
but-
brother. He's, you know, he's
can we not
voice
talk
of
about
Ragdoll.
John Jones's brother ever again?
Right.
Please? Can we please not talk about that?
All right.
my
Yeah,
God.
no, we're moving on from that one.
But I will say this though, but talking about expanding the rogues gallery, at least where Ragdoll's concerned, Ragdoll was always part of a family of contortionists. So he's actually the third. The one that they framed him after, the one that you actually see in the show, was technically the third version of Ragdoll that we've seen. Which means that there's Ragdoll 1 and Ragdoll 2 that they could bring out very easily that could have the exact same powers. I mean, you could have Ragdoll return. So it is not necessarily a gone character. But no, I feel like that's probably one of the Flash's weakest points. And Nathan knows I've been, complaining about this since season 1, is the fact that we have not built up an adequate rogues gallery. Basically, the rogues gallery is an alternating group of people who are trying to make it right, and then sometimes fall back on bad times, and then they start, committing crimes again. And that's they call them filler episodes, in the comics. But some of the best moments in the Flash has always been with these characters that next episode or next issue, Captain Cold returns, great, But what they did is every time they developed a really interesting villain, they spun them off into their own damn show. So Captain Cold and Heatwave go off and become freaking heroes on Legends, and then, Captain Cold becomes an occasional cameo from there, Pied Piper has basically permanently become, a good guy that's just kind of hanging out with his boyfriend. Okay, great, but when we're supposed to have years of Pied Piper being a jerk before he gets to be the good guy, so it's that doesn't pay off. Mirror Master was in a zoot suit and vanished. We haven't seen the Trickster around lately. I mean, where's the top? Give me the damn top. They killed the turtle. It's there's so many freaking rogues that we've burned through and we don't have a gallery. And what I loved about the end of the season was not only do we have now a new Mirror Master, even though they're not, perennial names in the Flash gallery, we now have Sunshine, we now have Ultraviolet, and we have Dr. Light. That's a rogue gallery. It's a small one, and it's a bunch of people that we don't necessarily know, but that's okay. I mean, let's be fair. Who would have thought Captain Cold would have become a perennial favorite for decades? Captain freaking Cold. So just because they have a weird name doesn't mean they can't make an amazing character. So
they need to lock down some of these people who live in Vancouver who are always up for doing an episode or two a year.
Yeah.
And you need to get some of them where they just come back every, it's like how I always liked in the Nolan movies, how Scarecrow showed up in the other two movies, even though he really wasn't anything. But it's just it's nice to see a familiar face. It's oh, we'll start the movie with Batman beating up Scarecrow. That's kind of nice,
and who's the judge in part 3? Oh, it's Cillian Murphy. What's up, buddy?
That's right. It's that's just a nice sort of touchstone. It doesn't have to be a big part of the plot. It's just to show that there are certain people that are just reoccurring thorns and Barry's side,
Yeah,
just have
absolutely.
a few of those,
And whatever happened to the Weather Witch? Where the hell is she at?
She showed up at the very end of Crisis for 5 seconds.
For 5 seconds, yeah.
Right. Just to show that, we're on a combined Earth now.
In fairness, we have gotten one kind of reoccurring villain the past. I was going to say, which I don't know how she translates from the comics, several times the past few seasons, Amunet. And she had a kind of season as well.
Well, but she wasn't there at all last season. She skipped a season. She was really big in season 4. She didn't appear at all in season 5, and then she had her one episode this season.
That Valentine's Day episode could kind of go burn itself. I gotta be honest.
I thought it was fun.
It was fun, but it felt like so much filler. And what I do now is I tend to binge the half seasons. So what I'll do is I'll watch the premiere season of The Flash, and if it doesn't immediately grab me, I'll say, okay, I'll wait until we get to the crossover event, and I'll watch all these episodes because I just buy the season outright on Amazon. And then I'll just watch them all, and then I jump right into the crossover. And then I'll wait for the post-crossover episodes to finish up, and then I'll watch them all in one big chunk. Just because normally these stories make more sense if you watch them back to back to back.
Yeah, that's kind of a thing. I think that would definitely be better.
And the Amunet episode was just what? I was are you kidding me? No. But you're right. I mean, she is a recurring villain of sorts, so I will give them that one. The character who I could give two craps about, even though I love Katie Sackhoff, there are things about Amunet I like, but I think the fact that she's an American who's trying to play a British accent, and that's actually a gimmick in the show, she's actually an American who is doing a bad British accent, and I don't know. Her powers are weird, and she doesn't do anything, but we know she's out there. that does not make a rogue gallery. Like
Yeah.
she needs some other muscle around her.
Yeah. I'm not a big fan of Amunet either.
But
anyway.
I like Katie Sackhoff. I like the actress.
I mean, she's great as Starbuck, but that's a completely different character. Not every actor can do every kind of character justice.
Yeah,
and so but I do want to talk about Caitlin / Killer Frost just for a minute because Danielle Panabaker is so sweet.
Yes.
And obviously her pregnancy kind of overshadowed a lot of this season because she couldn't do as much physically. They had to give her the new outfit so that it was a little more, a little less, hugging, her body and a little more room and everything. So
flowy.
Yeah. She had to be wounded.
Right. The thing I didn't get is why it was like, now you're Killer Frost all the time. And except for like a few like isolated occurrences when she becomes Caitlin, I don't know exactly what they were trying to do with that, other than if it was trying to be like another example of how Ralph tries to help somebody while also showing that like, yeah, but I don't get like the good stuff for myself. I just help other people like live their lives, which, is always like the sad thing about Ralph.
This is the messy writing portion of the show, which is they've come to like Killer Frost better than Caitlin Snow.
Yeah.
And so they write this whole idea that, she always had these powers. And in fact, the Caitlin Snow character is the secondary personality, and the Killer Frost personality was the original, like that's the birth personality. And it's been repressed for so long. That's why it's angry. Right. And so now Caitlin has taken a step back. So Killer Frost can be the foreground. And I'm like, wait a minute. So they both exist in the head at the exact same time, but only one can drive the body. And the other one's like in Herman's head. Like if you guys remember Herman's head, right? Like it was just a whole, so I mean, I'm like, wait a minute. So Caitlin's just like chilling out on a couch somewhere in the back of the head, watching, like Hulu or something. Like it makes no sense how they're presenting it because multiple personalities, one is conscious and the other one is not. And so what they're saying is, okay, Caitlin is willingly basically going into a coma so that way the original personality can have a life. And I'm like, it feels too damn complicated. Whereas I like the explanation more as it's the same personality, but the powers make her a little crazy. I liked that version a lot better than this dueling schizophrenia, multiple personality thing that they're trying to push on us. That really kind of bugged me. I got to be honest.
And they've got to, and the problem is they've watered Killer Frost down so much at this point that it's like, why do you even have her as Killer Frost? Just say that Caitlin has ice powers and like, don't even say like their minds have merged or whatever, because at this point, like Killer Frost is basically just like
Caitlin.
a normal like city woman, except she has ice powers. I mean there's no crazy there.
Yeah, the way I would have handled it was keep it with the ice powers make Caitlin crazy, and Caitlin has now she's found a way to actually control the crazy part of her mind. She call it therapy, call it whatever, but she's finally found a way to do that. But it's permanently altered her personality. So like she gets too angry. So like, all of her science that she has, if she gets too angry, the ice powers start to manifest more and she can't do the finer detail work.
That's my secret, Barry. I'm always icy.
Basically, right? I mean,
yeah, exactly.
But I mean, like that would have been a much more satisfying way of permanently working in the platinum blonde hair and like the slightly blue complexion and all that jazz than what we got, which is she's just randomly, oh, I'm Caitlin today. Oh, I'm Killer Frost today. Like what? But I don't even understand the point of differentiating them if you're going to water Killer Frost down to such a point that like she's not homicidal, she's not even wild anymore. She's just like I just want to be a regular girl. Nathan, that's because she had a birthday party, dude.
Right. That's right.
She had a birthday party, so now she's in love with the world. Okay.
Hey, she's
in fact, not only has she been watered down to the point where she's not homicidal or wild, now she's trying to help people with love matches and stuff.
Yes.
And it's like, what the
She
heck
became a
was
Yenta.
that?
What the hell was that?
Like, all right. So I use my daughter as the sort of barometer on the writing because it's like I have all sorts of opinions from being steeped in lore or reading stuff that this is based on and stuff like that, and so I get sometimes a little too like this is what I'm used to and I don't like change, but my daughter's got none of that. she was the one that was like, what in the world is Killer Frost doing trying to help Allegra find, like, she was mad about that because he's like, it's so stupid. It has nothing to do with the character. Like, it's not even like the same person anymore. And yeah, she was really.
So wait, what you're saying is that Rachel's superpower is that her autism allows her to cut through narrative BS.
Right. Oh,
That's
God,
what you're telling us.
Yeah.
So that she needs to just make a plan that her job is that she's going to go to Hollywood and you're going to hire her and you're going to write these stories. And if she goes, that's BS, you're screwing up. And then you're saving whole seasons worth of bad writing because you have Rachel in the room.
And that she was also the reason why I brought up the fact that people who weren't familiar with the 90s Flash show would not get at all his sacrifice.
Right.
Because like she was like, this is stupid. She's like, they've been saying it's going to be Barry. Why are they pulling in this other guy? And I tried to explain about this other, there was the other show, and that's who's the actor. She's like,
and
I
she's
know
like,
that.
oh man, I don't care about Flash from the 90s.
Right, exactly. She's like, I know, because I've told her before that he's the actor from the old Flash show. She's like, but that doesn't matter to me. And it's like, yeah, I can't fault you on that,
Yeah, no, I like her superpower. That's a great superpower to have. Just call BS. Like, she just has like a red card, like in soccer, right? Like, no, that doesn't fly. See, we listened to Rachel.
All right, this is a total digression, but we just finished watching Star Trek: The Next Generation.
Uh-huh.
And the last episode with Wesley, the one where it's like, you're an evolved being, Wesley. You can go off and walk with the Traveler. She was like, this is the first time I've watched an episode of Star Trek that I'm going to just pretend it never happened.
Oh my God.
Like, yeah. She's like, that's not the way that his story was going. It doesn't make any sense.
Nope.
She's like, even like the Traveler said that like Wesley was going to be this big time engineer someday. It wasn't like you're the star child. I mean, she didn't use that term, but like just the idea that he's like this evolved being. And it's like,
wouldn't that have been funny though if the last shot is just Wesley in a giant space bean, like at the end of 2001, like just floated. But yeah, no.
All right, but anyway, that was a digression. But yeah, and the sad thing is, I really love Danielle Panabaker. She is a sweetie if you ever meet her at a convention, and I've loved her as Caitlin. I loved her as Killer Frost. And back when she could actually transition and the two characters actually were very different, I was like, she's got a great acting gig because she gets to play these two characters. It's not all over the place like poor Tom Cavanaugh, who has to do like 50 different iterations.
Right. Yeah.
It's two very well-defined, like, I'm Caitlin, she's kind of meek, but she's intelligent and she, is helpful and all that. But then I can also be this aggressive sort of wild character. So I get to play both sides. But it's like, now it's like there's no fun watching Killer Frost because Killer Frost is just a regular person with no really well-defined things other than her powers. So.
I mean, maybe they're building up to these personalities, these two separate personalities are finally going to merge together.
Yeah.
Like maybe that's where they're going with this. And I think that's honestly the smartest move because you're right. Killer Frost has become 50% less killer and a way more just kind of like snarky Caitlin, and I think that's fine. I think that it's so easy. One episode, just hit it head on. Boom. There you go. Caitlin Frost and Killer Snow are the same personality now. They've merged together. John Jones says, you're welcome. And then you're done. Like
that's true. They can always just pull John in for an episode.
Yeah.
It's I mean, the same Earth. Yeah.
It's like, this is such an easy fix, right? And it would be interesting. And it allows her, because at this point, I mean, essentially what you have right now in Danielle Panabaker as an actress is you have a woman who's been able to play the soft sweet. You've been able to play the cold mean. You've been able to play the angry mean. You've been able to see a nice balance of all three of those versions, and the woman is also a pretty accomplished director at this point. She's getting a lot of directing credits under her. I mean, the woman is becoming a tour de force on her own, and it's only a matter of time before she's probably going to move on to bigger and better things. So it's like, if you want to keep her around, you've got to give her something meaty to do. And I think even though she said that she had such a great time this year during the season of Flash, I think she's ready to see something really special come out of it. And I think if they're going to do it, they got to find a way to make Killer Frost and Caitlin Snow the same character and figure out a new vector. So, I keep saying that she should become the next Captain Cold, or at least a Citizen Cold. That I've been pushing for her to become Citizen Cold for a while, because I think making her into a rogue for a season, maybe she has a little bit of a break as she's, coagulating these two personalities into one, and she just kind of goes a little off the rails. I think would be a really great season for her. And then ultimately she changes her mind. She's like, no, I don't want to do, necessarily evil things, and does more of a redeemed hero, kind of like a Snart. And now you have a Cold on you again. You don't have to call her Frost. She can literally be Citizen Cold.
Yeah, I think the problem with that is that too many people have memories of the Savitar season where they already tried to turn Caitlyn into a villain type character, and it didn't work out too well in that context.
Whoa. You can't tell me that people are going to have problems with that, considering the fact that we've had 47 seasons where I'm the fastest man alive, and yet he's not the fastest damn man alive because there's a faster speedster out there. You know what? Right, seriously. Like, to this day, I am still happy that the main villains in the last couple seasons have not been speedsters. I'm like, yes. What? Just, oh God. Even though I do hope that we get the payoff of Godspeed. We didn't even talk about that.
No, that's true, because it didn't get to go anywhere because whatever payoff was not there, right? Yeah.
We still don't know what's up with Godspeed, which, again, that character has gotten way more screen time than any other one-off character in the history of comics. Right. Literally, he had like 15 pages to the history of his entire existence.
Well, it's a great outfit.
It is, isn't it? It's a really good outfit. Yeah. And it's dead on to the comics too. That is 100% comic accurate.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely were building that up. I'm wondering if it's going to be related to Thawne somehow, and like Thawne lacks a body now, and there's all these different iterations of Godspeed showing up, and I'm really curious to see what the plan is there.
But but think about this though. We're talking about you have Danielle Panabaker's whole Killer Frost subplot. You have the Mirror Master subplot that's unresolved. You have the Godspeed subplot that's unresolved. You have the Bloodwork plot that's unresolved. You have the Sue Dearbon subplot that's unresolved.
The Bloodwork plot is only unresolved if you want it to be. It doesn't have to.
That's fair.
That's fair. Just pretend he's not there anymore. Like, see, they lock him like 50 levels further down. He's in the center of the earth. He can't get out without like getting into lava, which would just dissolve him. It's done.
It's true. Right. Just we don't. He doesn't exist anymore. But you have all these really interesting plots, and then you have the fact that the Reverse Flash for this entire season has been making these very interesting little cameos and has been popping up and then going away. They're finally using the Reverse Flash the exact way they need to, which is that a little bit goes a long way, because when he was showing up, when he had that moment where he had finally taken back over, Nash, thank you. I'm sitting there going like, which freaking version was it? When he jumps into Nash's body and he's going to kill Cisco and he doesn't have the Speed Force, and he's just like, it was such a great callback, and you freak out for a second, like, oh hell, like. It's feeling like they're finally figuring out the fact that they can have a multitude of these little subplots kind of going on, and it doesn't have to be one big bad. It doesn't have to be one macro plot. They can have all these things kind of happening, because that's usually what occurs. You do a season or do a year or two in the Flash comics of just 2 or 3 issue like kind of subplots, and then you have one big super story that says, oh, all that stuff that happened in the last 24 issues, it's actually because of this. And then you go, did they just pull a magic trick? I would love for them to do that. Like, kind of like look and see what season 6 was and continue this kind of little bit here, a little bit there in season 7, and then say, boom, this is all a return of Thawne at the very end of season 7 or something. That'd be amazing. Sorry, I'm derailing the show.
No, it's fine. No. That's, I mean, I think that's a great idea, and I think that they are planning something with Thawne for and I think that was always part of the plan.
Yeah. Killing him in season 1 was the stupidest thing they ever did.
Yes. No, I'll agree with that.
But they had the balls to do it, though. I'll give them credit on that. Yeah, they actually did it.
Eric, any thoughts on Caitlyn/Frost?
Oh, right. Hi, how's it going?
I'm sorry, Eric.
Sean is passionate about that. Hey, when you guys do a Flash episode, you know what you're in for now.
Yeah,
I mean, seriously, we're never doing a Flash episode in 90 minutes. Okay, it's just not going to happen.
You're welcome.
Yeah. So any thoughts about Caitlyn/Killer Frost, Eric?
Yeah, it kind of feels like to me, to a lesser extent, and obviously I don't know how. Well, I was gonna say obviously I don't know how true it is, but it kind of feels like the writers wanted to tackle dissociative identity disorder, but then didn't bother to research dissociative identity disorder.
Well, to be fair, comics rarely do either. It's kind of like the way it works in comics isn't really how it works in real life.
It's true. I mean, I've only found out about it recently thanks to Anthony Padilla and his really amazing video about spending a day with people with dissociative identity disorder. But that's kind of what it feels like they wanted to do with Caitlin and Killer Frost. But instead of giving them distinct personalities, it's just like, oh, one was evil and one was good. One protected the other one without realizing that they were protecting the other one. It's like, if you wanted a twin storyline, maybe tackle it that way. But it's like, the way you're tackling it is not the way that works.
Yeah, I mean, the real problem was everyone saw how charismatic she was as the role when it was the Killer Frost of Earth 2. And so they wanted to sort of play with that still, even though they had killed that character off. And then it was kind of like, it's just, I think they've been making it up as they go along has been the problem, rather than them really having a plan. Because they were like, okay, well, we'll have her be Killer Frost, but which is an evil personality within Caitlin. And then it was like, well, man, we still like her doing this, but we don't want her to be evil because that conflict with Team Flash was something we didn't like. And so that was like, she'll still be kind of wild, but she'll kind of help them now. And it's just kind of spiraled out. And then, now it's linked to the fact that her dad was actually Icicle, and it just, they keep making it up and tacking more onto it.
Another thing that Stargirl's been doing better, huh? What? I didn't say anything.
All right, Ryan, thoughts on Frost / Caitlin?
Well, I guess I'm in the minority in that I like the idea of them being two separate, distinct individuals, just kind of occupying the same space. I do agree they've kind of butchered it and handled it wrong, but I thought going into it that there was a lot that they could explore there and do with that. But I'm also willing to give them the benefit of the doubt this past season that a lot of the stuff that they've had to do with Caitlin was, hey, we need to give Caitlin something to do, but it's got to be from the couch with this pillow this high up in front of her. So really all that leaves is, conversation. So I'm willing to give them a pass on this season, and I'll see what they do with her next.
I'm just surprised that as a pregnant woman that she wanted to do all that makeup and everything. You'd think that she'd be like, I just don't want to do the Killer Frost thing this year, guys. I'll just be Caitlin all the time until I have the baby.
I half wonder if that was I mean, some people, when maybe her face was filling out or something like that, I don't know, maybe that was part of it.
That could be.
Yeah. I mean, you could always tell just from Jennifer Goodwin's face when she was pregnant and when she wasn't.
Right. Well, I'm glad that they at least didn't try to build in a Killer Frost gets pregnant story, because then that would have been a...
Well, if they had,
need.
But here's the sad truth of the character of, well, not necessarily Killer Frost, but Caitlin. Had she had a love relationship this season, it would have been with Bloodwork.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because that's Caitlin.
Yeah. Unlucky in love. That is the definite character trait for Caitlin. Although we never did find out what happened to Draco.
Yeah, he went back.
He just disappeared in between seasons. It's just did she kill him?
hey, we finally got Hartley again. Hopefully that means we'll get.
Well, I'm not sure that character really needs to come back, but he was not very. Oh, okay.
I love that character then.
But anyway, so yeah, I mean, we talked about Barry being mopey for a lot of this season. I mean, kind of the problem is he went from mopey to witless, because it's he took him so long to catch on to Siri, and it was everybody else is there's a lot of really weird stuff going on here, can't you tell? And especially when she's I want a mirror gun, stamping her feet, throwing a childish tantrums and stuff. It's just oh God. And just the fact that he was so clueless for so long. I don't know. I feel like Grant Gustin was kind of underchanged this season or shortchanged this season, because like Sean was mentioning, we had so much going on, and I feel like he didn't really get to do a whole lot. Even his death, which should have been a big deal, oh, we're going to do this Death of the Flash storyline. He doesn't even get to do it. That's John Wesley Shipp. So it's he doesn't get to have a moment. I don't know. Does anyone else feel like Grant was just completely shortchanged?
I don't know that Grant was shortchanged, but I do feel like Barry makes everything about Barry. Even he mopes about something every season and makes it about himself, whether it's Nora It's that he makes it about him, about whether he's a good dad or a bad dad or whatever. Whether it's about Iris dying, that's clearly something about Barry we've got to discuss. And this was kind of no different. I mean, the reason Barry couldn't see Iris changing for so long is because Barry is really kind of just involved with Barry. And I don't think Grant was necessarily robbed or in any respect that way. I just think that he's kind of been emo. It's a fine line between Happy Barry and emo Barry.
Eric, thoughts on Barry this season? I feel bad coming to him last and having it be like just talk a few minutes, but I really feel like he hasn't done a whole lot. There's not a lot to talk about. He's just been behind the eight ball a lot.
Yeah, it's weird. You'd think a show like The Flash, we'd get more of the fun stuff, which has been lacking. Like you'd get more of that really awesome Grodd episode, or like I said, the Flash and the Flash and Ralph episode, and just or even like the Hartley Godspeed episode. Like those are the kind of episodes that I love in a season versus dragging Barry 15 episodes of him basically being mopey emo Spider-Man 3 Peter Parker.
Okay, but if they do a scene where Barry walks down the street like snapping his fingers at people and stuff, I'm there for that.
That'll be the next musical.
Acting like he's super cool even though he looks like such a dork. That'd be funny.
But yeah, it's weird for like because we know Grant Gustin can have fun on a set. I mean, look at the crossover episodes. It's him having a lot of fun, and yet most of the season of his actual show, you get Mopey Barry.
I don't know. Maybe they feel like since Arrow ended, like all the all the darkness has to come to the Flash. It's like now I've got to grieve about everything and just be like, man, it's all my fault.
Who's going to take on the mantle of brooding?
Right? Yeah, I'm the brooding one now. Actually, you know what? And we didn't talk about it, but the episode where Barry just couldn't believe that Oliver was dead and was looking for the loophole, that was probably the best Barry episode this season, because that was some real acting, and that was like some real, like, you bought the grief and the lack of, just being able to accept Oliver's death, and coming off of that being the Arrow finale and everything, that I thought was a really strong episode for Barry.
I mean, it's weird too, because obviously now the Arrow's ended, like it feels like they split off the broody writers to go to the other shows, bring them into the darkness. It's like, no, but it's like Black Lightning will handle serious topics while still having fun. Legends of Tomorrow is just insanity and will still have bits and pieces of drama in it when it can, but like manages to capture the fun of what the Arrow universe can be. And then even like Supergirl, you'll have super serious stuff going on, but then here's certain characters back from the future to set their identities right so nothing bad happens in the future, and like you're still having fun on those shows. And then you go back to Flash every season and it's just like, oh, somebody's dead, here's Barry moping about it for 10 episodes. It's like, no, come on.
This is why I feel the lack of Ralph so hard, because whenever Ralph isn't there, like the fun just is gone. It's like, Cisco sure isn't having fun anymore.
There was no Ralph, no Cisco. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So, Sean, Barry this season, thoughts?
Well, unfortunately, somebody body snatched Barry, and we did not get Barry this season. We got somebody else. I'm not sure who it is. I've been thinking about which other speedster it could be, and the only speedster I could think of is there's one from the 24th century who tried to take over Wally West's life after Dead Heat, and I think that's what's happened. I think we don't have Barry Allen in the Flash universe right now. I think what we have is a horrible, horrible, horrible clone that is just trying to pull the wool over our eyes, and I'm not too happy about it. I quite frankly miss the days of happy-go-lucky Barry, and I think the further we're getting away from it, the more apparent it is that he's not coming back anytime soon. But all kind of like sarcasm aside, I think the problem that I'm seeing a lot right now is the fact that the Flash writers in season 1 knew that the way they bring people in is by making them smile and making them realize that you can do a superhero show that is joyful and hopeful and optimistic and absolutely amazing. and then they forgot their own lesson, and they made it more DC. Because every single time you hear Warner Brothers talk about the DC universe, they always talk about, we're going to make it gritty and real. We're going to make it more emotional and dark. And there are certain characters you can't do that to. Like, you just can't. It breaks the formula of what that character is. And that's what they've been doing. And some seasons, they'll take it off. They'll, quite frankly, the entirety of season 5, where you have Nora running around with Barry, it was pretty positive. It was a pretty uplifting season. Now when she died, okay, that sucked, and deservedly so. You can now have a dark, kind of depressive hole, but it was a far more uplifting season overall. And that means, of course, that when she died at the end of the season, it hurt that much more. We're seeing the opposite effect of that, which is when everything is dark, broody, mopey, there's nowhere to go. Like, you can't make it any, like, you can't put the misery hole into a deeper hole. Well, let me rephrase. You can, but we're not going to appreciate it. And that's just not fundamentally who Barry is. And I guarantee you they're probably hearing that a lot right now. Having Barry be oblivious to Iris's disappearance, and then when he figures it out, acts like an insane maniac trying to prove that she's not who she is.
He was the internet meme guy with the chart with the string.
Seriously, yeah, he's Charlie Day. I mean, like, it's completely ridiculous, and it goes completely against who Barry is. Barry is a scientist. Barry would have facts and figures. He would have detailed things figured out before he ever brought anybody on board, and when he did, he would say so in a clear and deliberate manner. When Barry is not a happy-go-lucky individual, he is all about science and procedure and order of operation. And we're losing that right now. And they even tried to bring it back up, like, hey, I have a day job, I'm a scientist, and it's like, they keep losing the spirit of it. And I think that's because they're having, I think there's something weird going on right now, quite honestly, in the entire Berlantiverse. I think there are some shows where they're basically left alone because they're like, well, we don't know what's going on. And there are certain shows that are their flagship shows. I think if you look at all the shows that were on, Arrow had a lot of importance to it, and they knew they were wrapping it up, and they said, writers, do what you want to. And they made a great season. Supergirl has become, frankly, a big show for them. And they're constantly wanting to build that up. So, Supergirl has had issues because I feel like there's other things involving themselves into it. And I think Flash, being now the elder statesman, the great granddaddy of everybody, people are putting a lot of pressure on the show to perform in a certain way. And I feel like it's too many cooks in the kitchen. And I think that, quite frankly, I think that Berlanti might be finally spreading himself too thin. Too many shows, not enough quality content. Because I think if he's not, they say he's the showrunner, but he's really show running. What is it? 18 shows now?
It's an obscene number.
Seriously, like, it's a lot of shows.
Sounds plausible.
I mean, I'm not even kidding when we know it's in the teens.
Right.
We just don't know how high up into the teens. You
can't know how high up it is.
I mean, seriously, right? Like, he could be in the 20s for all we know at this point. I mean, you can't have that many shows running concurrently and have effective show running. And as we all know, the showrunner is the person who calls the shots, which means that he has to put in proxies. And if those proxies aren't exactly what is needed, they ruin the final product. And quite frankly, what I think we're seeing here is I think we're finding writers, and we're finding actors, and we're finding all the creative people desperately trying to work under a showrunner who is not the right fit for the show. You want to see a good fit for the show, go look at Legends of Tomorrow. Legends of Tomorrow has good stewardship, and everything seems to run pretty much on clockwork. Flash and Supergirl, not so much.
Yeah, I mean, John Cryer is basically carrying Supergirl right now.
But let's be fair. That was like the most inspired thing they could have done.
Right, yeah, no, that's,
we can't even talk about Supergirl because we're talking about Flash. But yes, can we just can we pour 40 out for John Cryer right now, just completely destroying it as Lex Luthor? Like, oh my God.
That was talk about inspired casting, like the Ralph and Sue one. That was
that's exactly what it is. John Cryer is for Supergirl is the Ralph and Sue casting of Supergirl. I mean, oh my God.
On paper, he's the last person you would ever pick, but it worked.
Yes, he totally was, and it totally worked. But you can see the problems, and I think right now what's happening, and probably they're talking about this in the writers' room. They're probably talking about this in the creative room. Is why the stewardship is flagging a little bit. And I would put dollars to donuts that this upcoming season of Supergirl and Flash, we will either see a resurgence of what makes those shows great, or we're going to see a continued degradation. And if we have another season that does not feel like they're supposed to feel, we're going to probably start talking about, is next season the last season? I think that we're definitely blowing through season 7 and we'll get to season 8. But I have no idea past season 8 if Flash is going to survive, if season 7 is like this. Because this season, even though there's a lot going on, and I enjoyed a lot of it with Grant Gustin and what they were trying to do, I feel like the vision of who the Flash is being lost. And this feels like, and you know my opinion on the Savitar season, it feels like Savitar all over again. And I had a lot of problems with that season. And that, for me, is still the low point of all the Flash narratives. And I'm very afraid that we're going to, if we have another one of those in succession, we're in deep caca. However, season 4 was The Thinker, and The Thinker was pretty good.
Yeah. No, and that's the thing. I mean, like, what season 1 of The Flash showed us, and I still think it's the best season, and it's sad
so
because,
good.
like, one of the things that, you know, one of the defenses that was made, quote unquote, when people asked about the newspaper article and how it wasn't really Barry who died, was they were like, well, it was a different showrunner in season 1. I'm like, whoever that was, get him back, because it's like that he knew how to do a show that was both fun, but also had the dramatic impact and had, like, an interesting storyline. You know, all the different twists and turns of the Wells storyline that kept you guessing all throughout that season. So it wasn't just because, you know, sometimes, you know, fun or comedy gets to a point where it's just like, okay, well, now nothing really ever has any meaning because it's just silly, right? Like, everybody can just pull things out and just be like, oh, it's for a laugh, you know, then all the risk or all the dramatic tension is just gone because it was a joke, right? But The Flash was the thing that threaded that needle so perfectly in season 1. Plenty of drama, plenty of fun and comedy, plenty of, you know, like, interesting, like, story development.
Yeah.
That's what we need.
Yeah.
That's the show, you know, like, bring that back.
But I think one thing that we can look at when we're looking at what they're doing with the Flash for season 6 is, remember, I named off all those plot points, you know, the return of Thawne, more Mirror Master, the developing of a rogues gallery, you know, all these little subplots that are all going on concurrently. The fact that there are multiple Earths still. I mean, the Flash will always be the forefront of multiple Earths. So when they finally uncork that again, because it's coming, they're going to uncork it again. It's coming. We all know it's coming. But when they finally
hopefully
uncork
not
it,
like next year though, because it's like it kind of undoes, like, oh, we had Crisis to get rid of this, and now we're going to bring it right back.
Right. But definitely, you know, that's something to look forward to. But I feel like there's a distinct possibility where they can have as good of a first season for season 6, just by saying, let's keep Barry in a positive place. Let's deal with these plot threads. Let's have fun with it. Let's not worry about a macro villain. Let's just deal with the fact that let's just show the Flash being the Flash. Because, you know, what's interesting is that he's now been doing this for 6 years, but there's not been 1 year where he's just enjoyed being the Flash. The Flash has been a burden. And you've read the comics. I've made you read the comics.
Right.
You know, the Flash typically does not see his mantle as a burden.
Right.
He's
not Spider-Man.
He is not Spider-Man. He sees it as a joy and a purpose, and he sees it as his destiny. And I would love a season that has stakes, that has drama, that has a bunch of really interesting character moments, but does not feel like a burden to the main character. And I think if they do that for season 6 or season 7, I think we're going to see something really, really special. And they have the ingredients. They have enough storylines all kind of running concurrently where you can have Mirror Master, you know, do something for 3 to 5 episodes, and you can, you know, the return of Caitlin Snow could maybe have problems. Sue Dearbon and Ralph kind of going through their whole adventures and whatnot. You know, Bloodwork. As he mumbles it out very
we can just forget about Bloodwork. It's fine.
You know, hell, I mean, you could even though Grodd said he just wanted peace, we all know Grodd's going to get the Gorillas in Gorilla City to do something. I mean, we're going to get a Gorilla City back. The rebirth of the Speed Force is another thing that we're going to get next season. However they're going to handle that. And then finally, at the end of the season, they say, okay, we've done all these little sub-stories. Now you're going to find out this one connecting thread all the way through it was that these were all markers for the return of Eobard Thawne in a new body. And like the last 3 or 4 episodes are just, you know, oh crap, and the you know, the poop has hit the fan.
And that's when they pull out the shock reveal. It's actually Eddie Thawne's body, and he's still around.
I would be fine with that. You know?
Yeah.
Actually, I would be too. The fact that it's not Eddie Thawne kind of pisses me off a little bit because that actor was amazing in the first season.
Yeah, no, but it's just been like that's been like my theory. Like every year has been like the secret villain is going to turn out to be Eddie, and it's never right.
I just think they enjoy Tom Cavanaugh too much as evil Wells as Thawne. But yeah, I think that would be great. But please, can we not bring back what's his name, the guy who played him over on Legends and the quote unquote real face of Thawne?
Yeah.
I forget that actor's name.
Yeah, I forget his name too.
Yeah, I would love to see original Eddie come back. I think that'd be great.
Yeah,
I love
that. In post crisis, he didn't shoot himself. Shock twist. But anyway,
whoa.
Yeah, because I mean, they can reset whatever they want to now.
That could work, man. That could work.
Yep. So yeah. We'll see. So, so of course we've been talking now for quite a while.
I'm sorry.
So let's talk about just as we wrap things up. Anything we've thrown a few ideas out there, but anything you want to see out of this next season? So let's start with you this time, Ryan.
That's kind of tough to say, right? Because obviously, firstly, I want them to just finish this season,
right? It's fair, but I mean, we've already laid enough seeds, I think, for us to sort of speculate.
Possibly. I mean, it depends because every season ends with that cliffhanger where there will be some consequence that will forever change Team Flash for one episode, and so we're going to miss out on that. But no, I mean, I guess my overall thoughts, what I would like to see, and this goes to what Sean was saying and what kind of everyone's saying, is I feel like this season, and maybe it was Crisis, and maybe it's showrunners and backstage politics, whatever, but this season feels like, and I definitely know it's some of the actors, Carlos, they're burnout. I just get the strongest feel of burnout from the show this season, and it sapped a lot of the good energy, the good fun from it. So I would like just to see them, maybe they can take this time, make something good out of this bad and get recharged and come at this show with a new perspective and find, what worked for them. And if that means, kind of making some of the actors decide if they really want to even be on this show, then do it, because it's just this 1 foot in, 1 foot out is just dragging everything down. And there's a lot of good actors and a lot of fun actors on the show who aren't getting enough time because of it. And there are other directions they could go. So what I would like to see next season is a commitment by the participants of the show to actually be on the show.
That's fair. Eric, what would you like to see in season 7?
So Sean will see this coming because we talked about this on my Crisis episode on my podcast, which was actually 3.5 hours, Sean?
Sorry.
No, I wasn't saying that as a bad thing. I was actually it's a pretty in-depth thing, and I think we only 40% talk about Crisis, but
right.
Anyways, I think especially with Jay being gone, and obviously Barry's only got his dad and Joe, I would like to see Barry get a new mentor relationship, if this person can guess at all, even though I know the shows shoot in separate countries, let alone separate states. But I would love to see the Barry Allen and Jefferson Pierce relationship explored, since we only got bits and pieces of it teased. And
I'm sorry, I think you mispronounced Max Mercury.
But no, I think Jefferson would make a really great mentor for Barry, especially with them in such different places. And I think he might even help Barry, come out of this weird funk that he's been in forever now.
I'm sorry. I've been also petitioning for Max Mercury to show up for like 4 seasons. So
to be fair, he's been petitioning for Max Mercury since he read the what was it? Time Runs Out. What was the name of that? It wasn't Dead Heat. Was it Dead Heat?
No, it was oh crap.
It wasn't Ride the Lightning.
No,
it was the one where Wally died. He finally entered the Speed Force, and Max. The whole Speed Force was introduced with Max Mercury. And I'd be damned if I can remember the.
Crap! Yeah, it like led up to issue 100.
Yeah, it would lead up to it. But was it Dead Heat? Hold on. Now I got to go look. Hold on. Maybe it was The Quick and the Dead. Now I got to look it up. It's going to bug me.
Also, if we're going super obscure fanboy mode, I would love. No, I'm not. He keeps thinking I'm going negative. Jeez. I would love to see some sort, especially related to Ralph and Sue's story. I would love to see some sort of incarnation of the Trenchcoat Brigade. I mean, they've got John Constantine, they've got Ralph. We could easily have Bobo. Yeah, that's right. I'm still pushing for Detective Chimp to show up in the Arrowverse. We could get the Phantom Stranger, because I keep hearing rumors that they want to use him inside of this Superman and Lois show. I keep hearing the rumor. It hasn't been confirmed, but trying to think out who else they could throw in. Maybe Dr. Occult at some point would be fun.
Yeah, I think you're misreading what's going on with Superman and Lois, but we'll talk about that another time.
No, it was one of Russ's stories.
The guy in the script is referred to as the Stranger, but I don't think that's what's going on. But we'll talk.
No, not him. There,
okay.
I'm gonna have to ask Russ about the story, because there was a rumor that they could introduce the Phantom Stranger at some point, but not that Stranger character, but actually the Phantom Stranger.
Okay.
Hey, we could go into not Crisis. We could go into the Kingdom, and it could be a certain character that you don't want to open that can of worms. Right, Sean?
Yeah, he's talking about Magog. He's like, let's bring Magog in. Oh, let's not.
No, I was talking about the whole Phantom Stranger being related to Superman thing, thanks to the Kingdom.
Oh, yeah, no, that's no good.
That was my joke there.
Yeah, no, that's not good. By the way, the name of issue number 100 is The Quick and the Dead. The name of that particular storyline was Terminal Velocity.
Terminal Velocity, that was it.
Oh,
yeah, God, I couldn't remember it. Okay.
So yeah, I was right when I said Quick and the Dead. I was like, that's not right though. That's wrong. And I was like, no, actually the issue where he goes into the Speed Force, that awesome Linda episode.
Yeah, the Linda.
Issue.
Yeah. Yep,
so good.
I remember that very clearly.
Yeah, but that was The Quick and the Dead. Yeah. But yeah, it's Terminal Velocity. So
okay. Yep, that was the name I couldn't remember.
Yeah. But that would be a great one. We still haven't really gotten that yet. I would love for them to somehow retcon this whole Death of the Speed Force thing. Like maybe we haven't seen the real Speed Force. Maybe this was like the bitchy Speed Force. Maybe like like this was like the Speed Force.
I'm saying this is like the Paw Wraith equivalent of the Speed Force, is
right? You know, like we need the more kind of like positive version of the Speed Force. You know, like this is the punitive version of the Speed Force. We need to see the more supportive Speed Force. So I don't know.
So yeah, Sean, anything you want to say? I mean, you already said you want to be more upbeat and hopeful. Anything else that you want to see out of season?
No, I mean, I pretty much, I pretty much covered it with what I was saying before. I think not having a macro villain for the season would be great. I feel that if they handle these different story threads, they have enough to get through an entire season that builds up to the return of the Eobard Thawne, which is in the back of my brain. Like the end of season 7, that feels like a big deal. Getting to their 7th season is always kind of like a huge deal in TV circles, because a lot of shows, 7th season that's where they end stuff. That's where they pull the plug.
Yeah. Not the CW though.
No, not on CW, but getting to season 7 is a huge deal, and finally finding a way to bring back Eobard Thawne, even if he's still bouncing around the timeline, but he's in a permanent body again somehow, would be a really fantastic way to end that season. And I think that developing more rogues and keeping him in a more positive light, remind people why we want the Flash. You know, I feel like, especially in this day and age, a more hopeful, positive hero that's not always in doubt of his own powers and his own abilities, and actually is a person who feels like they can handle what's coming towards them, even though they may not succeed. I think we need more of that. People who are more positive, people who are more self-confident, but compassionate and have empathy. And if you've ever read the Flash comics, that's basically like, that's the through line with those characters, is they always try to understand what the other person's going through, which is why, again, never besmirch the name of Chunk, because Chunk, my boy. But yeah, I pretty much covered it. So I think we put a nail on that one.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, I mean, I've already said the things that I've wanted Eddie back for 6 seasons by the time the 7th season comes out. I want Eddie back for 6 seasons. I've wanted them to do something with Max Mercury. The problem is, if they get rid of the whole like nature of the Speed Force as a cosmic force, and now it's something they've just built in Star Labs, then it's not. I guess the like the interest in Max Mercury as someone who has studied the Speed Force his whole life and who has this whole like connection with it becomes, you know, kind of meaningless. But I still hope that somehow we discovered that this whole like artificial Speed Force thing isn't really the way to go, and like really it's not dead or something like that, you know. And just bring in Max Mercury, he'd be great. Eric's idea about having Jefferson in more, it's weird because Black Lightning, you can tell, really doesn't want to integrate with the other shows. Like, even when they did like their Crisis crossover, was kind of like, he can be over in Crisis, but when he comes back to Freeland, we kind of like pretend like we have like a few lines to cover it and then just basically be like, let's never talk about this again. Okay. You know, so it's like they don't really want to integrate Black Lightning in too closely with the other shows. So I'm not sure how well that'll work, but I do like the idea of Jefferson and Barry, just because it would be almost like a Luke Cage Iron Fist kind of relationship of just like where they come from in life and everything, and just sort of the shock of here's an older black man and this sort of young white guy from a, you know, somewhat, although I guess Barry was raised by people of color, so I guess it doesn't, I don't know, but I think it would be interesting, you know, to see their interactions. But yeah, no, I mean, not too much beyond that. I want to see some payoffs for the storylines they've been doing. I definitely want to see it more positive and more Ralph and Sue. Oh my God.
Oh yeah, Ralph and Sue are definitely like the power couple coming out of this season.
Yes. Oh yeah, I mean, they're definitely gonna do, I mean, if they didn't already have her locked down before like they showed that first episode, they immediately went into contractual talks with her after they saw how that first episode with her landed. Yeah. So all right, so yeah, now it's time to you know, say our goodbyes, let people know where they can find us. So let's start with you, Eric.
If you just look on Twitter, you should be able to find everything else. It's just at Eric Ratcliffe, and you can find when I do update the podcast, when New Comic Day is up, I usually post it there as well as the main site. Retweet and tweet whenever. Pretty much find everything through there.
All right, and Sean, why don't you say goodbye and let people know where they can find you?
Sure. Well, thanks for having me on, guys. I appreciate it. Sorry that I always go long in the mouth on this one. I always
you're the world's foremost Flash fan, so if there's ever an episode for you to go long on, this is the one.
Yeah, I mean, I really do. Like, I warn people. I'm like, okay, if we're talking about the Flash, just strap in, okay? Because I'm going to get very opinionated very quick. But yeah, thanks for letting me talk about Flash, and I hope that we see some really cool things happen in the future. If you guys want to hear me just ramble on a fairly frequent basis, I actually do Twitch now. My wife and I stopped doing so many conventions over the year. And we only do like a handful. And so all the people out there who have met us in all the different cities all over the country are like, man, we still wish we could kind of see your stuff and talk with you. And so what we did is we started about 7-8 months ago, we started doing Twitch, and now it's become like a weekly thing where we're on, you know, 2 to 3 nights a week. And it's kind of like a podcast, except you get to talk with me immediately. So if you ever want to come on board and talk about Flash, comics, whatever, we pretty much have a whole no barred thing, and you get to see whatever I'm working on art-wise. So come by and check that out. That's over at twitch.tv/popcycled. And of course, if you'd like to see any of the artwork my wife and I make, you can find us at popcyclebaubles.com. And that's pretty much universal all the way down through all the social media.
All right, very cool. And Ryan, why don't you say goodbye and let people know where they can find you?
All right. Well, until next time, Internet, I'm not going to say goodbye. I pay too much for, you know, fast speed internet. You can find me. You can find me at geekstranger.com. Sure, why not? You can find me on Facebook or Twitter at geekstranger. And from there, basically, your best bet finding me is to find one of these other fine people and make a comment which is just grossly wrong, so I can come correct you. But otherwise, and tag me, because that's the only way I'll see it, because I've been really busy lately.
Yeah, and that's true.
Yeah.
You will. All right. All right. So Sean, Eric, Ryan, thank you so much for being on the show this time.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And that's it for our episode on The Flash. What did you think? Did you like the episode? Did you not like it? Are there things that you think that we can improve? Are there guests that you want to hear come on the show more often? We want to hear all of that. So you can do that. You can give us feedback in a lot of different ways. One way is to email us at everything@42cast.com. You can go to our Facebook at facebook.com/42cast and leave a message there. You can go to our website at 42cast.com. You can also tweet to us at 42cast, and you can go to our Instagram, which is also 42cast. You can also leave us reviews on Stitcher Radio or iTunes. So there's a lot of different ways that you can do it. You can get in touch, let us know. We want to hear, we want to improve. We still don't get anywhere near enough feedback in my mind. We get a little bit, but I really want to know what people want to hear or if they like what we're doing already. I mean, that's good feedback too. So please just drop us a line and please let us know. The other thing that I want to make sure that I mention is the ESO Patreon. You can find that at patreon.com/ESO Network. There are different tiers with different privileges based on the amount that you can donate. So this is something that helps all of the ESO Network shows stay running. So if you have some money available, this is something that you can contribute to, and you want to help out the ESO Network, then please give that your consideration. There's not a whole lot more left to talk about. Just a little secret for everybody, because Beth only listens to these sporadically, and I don't think she's going to listen to this one. I have gotten her an amazing anniversary gift. It is something that she will absolutely go crazy for, and I am super proud of it. If you have heard of Cameo, I am going to get her a cameo from Kevin Conroy, who played Batman, and she absolutely loves him. So I can't wait to see her reaction, and hopefully in a few episodes I'll be able to tell you guys about it. But yeah, that's going to be the thing that's, sort of geeky, but kind of exciting that's going on over on our neck of the woods over here. And I guess the other thing that I should mention is that I asked a while back about what do you want to hear more from us, and the thing that I heard the most was about Star Wars. A lot of people would like us to talk more about Star Wars. So coming soon, you may hear more from us about Star Wars. I'm actually putting some things together. It's actually going to be kind of an exciting project. Several different people are working with me on this, but you're definitely going to hear more from us about Star Wars. But just sort of, I'm going to put a pin in that for now, not give away too much about our plans until things are a little bit further along, but just thought I'd pass that tidbit your way. But yeah, I think that wraps things up for this episode. Join us back next week when Noah Wiley will not be joining us. And until then, this is Nathan signing off. You have been listening to the 42 Cast, copyright 2020. Got a question for the ultimate answer? Contact us at everything@42cast.com. Theme music is Sharper Swords by Brandon Ellis. Check out more of his work at www.cityfires.com. The 42 Cast is a proud member of the ESO Network.
This has been a broadcast of the ESO Network. Be part of the crew and help support our shows by donating to our ESO Patreon or by shopping at the TeePublic store, which can all be found at www.esonetwork.com. The ESO Network, your station for all things geek.